Would you actually believe it? But it seems like I'm on time for the first time ever. This never happens. Let's have a look. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let's just check and see if everything's cleared up. Checking, seeing if the computer's lined up okay. Say hi to you before everything goes. Peter, welcome. Thomas, Pudge, Alon, Underachieving Watch Collector, Philly's Dad, Carassus. So many of you. Welcome. Zane, great to see you. Chung, Dear Artifact, Maynard in Japan. Great. Everyone, let me know if you can hear me in the chat. 15 seconds, I know. Cool, right? Comment one in the chat as we do. I don't know why we say one as the call sign, but if you can hear me, comment one and we can get the ball rolling. Philly's Dad, fantastic. SG, Blue Shirt, welcome. iHeart, Sushi, great. Jenks, nice to have you all here. Thank you for joining. I've had a nice week off. I took a week off last week before last, and it was nice to just clear the head, get back into the channel. The last time I took a week off was probably in and around November, I'd like to say. So it was nice taking some time off just to regather thoughts and prepare a bit more work on the side. So welcome everyone to Wrist Shot Week again. This was an unannounced show, as per the last few weeks has been the case, because the submissions have just been intense and I can't keep up. I really don't know what to do. Chip, welcome. There's so many of you here. Gary, Martin, Julian, Thomas from Paris is great. Chris Edwards, I'm scrolling up. Tunku, Mr. Perpetual. Welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. So because I get so many submissions at once, I don't know what to say. I can't exactly announce to everyone that it is Wrist Shot Week, because what will happen is another 50 photos come in. I'm pretty sure that between yesterday when the post came up and now, I normally put this out 24 hours beforehand so people are aware that the show will be happening. But between then and now, I probably have another 50 photos in my inbox. So it's very difficult. Thank you, Curtis. It's great. And Maynard, welcome. It's very difficult to keep up with everything. So I'll say that I pretty much, as you can see in the description of the video, I say submissions are closed, and this was Friday. So if you sent any photos in from Friday up to today, you won't be seeing the photos in the show. Those will be carried over for next week, just because I've opened the floodgates. Yeah, what someone said it so well in an email. Basically, it's a monster that must be fed now and has to keep being fed, you know? Dylan, welcome. So we have a great selection of pieces on the show. Just on the left side of the screen, you can see as I scroll. And the nice thing is it's not excessive like normal. It won't be a 3.5 hour show as usual. I think we might be good enough to get, in and around 2.5, 2 3/4, maybe 3 hours. But it allows me to spend a bit more time addressing you and seeing how you are. And I hope you're all well. I hope you've been keeping yourselves busy. I've spent a good week doing absolutely nothing to take my mind off watches for a while. It's very difficult to escape. And speaking of which, I stumbled onto this video. My buddy Cam at Craft and Tailored, he had a Skype, like a Zoom phone call with Christian from Theo and Harris. I've just dropped in the link in the description now. If you can see it, I don't know if you can, but it's really nice. It's just a one-to-one discussion about watches and Cartier vintage pieces. I hope to do a bit more of a live show where I can discuss the topic with people in future. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's just get rolling. We are currently, how far? 3 minutes in. And to all of you who are joining, welcome. There's so many of you here, and I hope to keep up. If you have any questions, tag me in the chat, and I'll be able to see it a lot quicker. And let's get into the watches, because there is a real nice selection. It's simple, basic, but also it can get quite excessive. So the cover photo, it's becoming so difficult. Neil, thank you. Welcome to the show. And Wristwatch Experience. It's becoming so difficult to find cover photos for the show. There's been, just in this selection alone, there've been some great watches that came in. And this just fell into my lap, I would say beginning of last week, maybe. And this is from James, founder Timeless Capital, who is not here at the moment, but I'm sure he'll be joining soon. And this is one of his favorites. He loves wearing this piece. And I see Ron, welcome Ron, saying that the Bund strap is I saw it. It's okay, don't worry. We all have our opinions about the piece, about the finishing and everything else. It's a bit cliche wearing the watch on the Bunds, but I mean, if you want to get the real aesthetic, it's the way to go. And we can talk about, yeah, Charles, that's it. Christian talking about the Cartier crash. Highly recommend you watch it. It's nice hearing a bit of a back and forth between two well-known guys in the space. So yeah, I just decided for a bit of a flex today, it would be nice to show a 6239, which is known as the Paul Newman, and it's pretty much in its natural habitat with a Bund strap and everything else. But as we know, James, founder Times Capital, he only gets watches from one owners with boxel papers, and this is pretty much as neat as it gets. And we can discuss this. Yeah, he does, Ron. I really hope to meet him when this ban is lifted and we can actually start moving around. I really hope to travel out to France and get some good footage and have a nice discussion about the pieces that he has. Amazing stuff. That's all I can say. Safe's worth of pieces. It's incredible. We can talk about this briefly. Talk about the Paul Newman and where it sits. It's kind of relative to your opinion. And Dear Artifact, yeah, it is a nice piece. I mean, there's all sorts of little things we can say about it, really. Look, I don't like the fact that it's like the hype watch of the century, that the prices for these are just ridiculous. Go into Google and look up Philips Daytona. The prices, we're talking 6 figures for everything. And it's just, it gets a bit out of hand. One thing I do like about the watch, above and beyond everything else, I like the fact that it is Paul Newman's watch. I like the idea that it was assigned to an owner. That's the one core detail. You know, with regards to being the best chronograph ever made, etc., etc. You know, I much prefer a Speedmaster from that time period or a Heuer from that time period. I wouldn't say this is the one I would gravitate towards. Aesthetically speaking, the Panda is great. It's really nice and legible. I don't know. I'd love to get some hands-on time with one of these, though. Panda meets a baby cow. I wonder if Paul Newman called it a Paul Newman. Yeah, he was so pretentious. He called it his own. Yeah, that would be funny, right? And Ron saying, I'm watching way too much content today. Do you agree that this hobby hurts sometimes when you don't have a ton of cash? You know, it's divisive. How best could I address it? I'm warming up. I'm hitting the coffee, iced coffee, drinking Monkey Shoulder, which is a nice change of pace. This is what I'm wearing, by the way, as you would expect, Old Faithful. I'm really enjoying it. And my hands are so cold, since it's an iced coffee, that the zoom is going to be a bit busted on this magic trackpad. But yeah, this little gem hasn't been off the wrist. I'm really enjoying it. And you'll see that there are a few featured in the show, which is going to be great. And not all of them are reissues. So yeah. So the question about, do you agree that the hobby hurts sometimes when you don't have a ton of cash to spend? It's a bit of a divided story. You know, when we talk about spending money on watches, I don't think luxury watches is the end all be all. It's nice how we go along our journey of picking out the pieces that we like and we enjoy. And they don't necessarily have to be, you know, 6 figures in price if you want to enjoy them. Anyway, I want to think a bit more of that concept, though. Please let me digest it a bit more as we go through. And there's so many of you here. Again, I'm not avoiding you in the chat. I have to try my best to keep up while the chat just moves ahead. Shaitan saying, does the Seamaster feel a part of you now? I mean, it's a watch that I just wear. I don't even think about wearing it. It's just there, does what it needs to do. And I so look forward to seeing it in the next 20 or so years from now, seeing how it ages over time. And yeah, man, the aesthetic is all that I need on a daily basis. I've got the numerals, I've got easy to read minute track, bezel, functional. I use the bezel so much. The bracelet, as Mr. Perpetual says, there's lots of talk about just how comfortable these bracelets are. They're very different. We can get into that at a later stage, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great piece to wear. Reed, that was a very nice use of the Omega logo there. Neil says, hate to say that I'm not a fan of Paul Newman Daytona. Why is it so popular? I'm afraid when it comes to hype and media, and when watches are spoken about often enough, you'll find that they will get constant attention, and that attention draws more focus to them, and so value goes up. There's the demand. It's a crazy thing how this space works. I can talk about a watch. I can talk about this watch and say it's the best watch ever. 10 people go out and buy it. Suddenly there's a demand for it, and so it just climbs and climbs and climbs. You know. Anyway, I want to get into the pieces because there's so many. And apologies about this mouse. I need to warm up my hands. My hands are freezing. Okay, we're going to catch up with all of you in the chat as we roll. Shaitan saying hype and logic are often mutually exclusive. Yeah, absolutely. And common sense is not that common at the end of the day, you know. So Aldebert sends in a Pelagos left-hand drive. And speaking of which, talking about Pelagos and mil-spec and all of this stuff, there's going to be a good video coming out on Wednesday. Mark your calendars for Wednesday because I've spent way too much time preparing and recording it over the last few days. And I will say it's a military video. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have already learned what it is. But it was at least 3 hours worth of recording time just to get it as polished as possible. And yeah, some of the best military issued watches of the time, for the time, in a single group. And Aldebert is here. Welcome. Great to have you. And Chili Badger saying lefty. Yeah, so left-hand drive, I've spoken about the Pelagos often enough. I'm sure most of you who've been a part of the show before knows it's really quite the tribute piece and really is Tudor's watch to the core with regards to the snowflake dial hands, the use of red highlights. The left-hand drive is a nice feature. And there's a mention about Willard from Tanuki's. Yeah, well, you're getting pretty warm there. And Mr. C, welcome. So great to have you. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining. And Junior, welcome. It's so good to have you all. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Okay, we're going to carry on. I want to run through these pieces. Spoke about most of these watches often enough. Andy sent in a Laco Flieger Type B dial, which is a good old faithful. It uses an ETA, if I'm not wrong, an ETA movement that's been modified in a few places. The Type B dial is not up everyone's alley, but I think the detail, you're able to read the time to the minute pretty easy at a glance, which is something quite special about this particular layout. So you can see it's pretty much, what, 2:53. You barely have to look at it to make out the time. And I was thinking about preparing a discussion around the perfect watch. I don't believe there is such thing as a perfect watch, but I believe when a watch is designated for an application, and there's mention about a bomber jacket, yeah, it looks great from BDev, and there's a map in the background, nice use of framing. When there's a watch that's designed for an application, like a pilot watch, this is a superb example for that use. You know, there's all sorts of little factors we can look into, and we get really deep into this hobby, you know. Okay, so we're going to carry on rolling. Oh, 1:53, you're right. Thanks, Julian and Zeus. It's not 2, it's 1. Dear. When you're on the spot, you can imagine you can make a few mistakes. Lisa from Kentucky, welcome. There's so many more of you here. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the show and joining. So, Andy, thank you for sending this in. We're jumping to Audemars with a two-tone Rolex Submariner next. And the bluesy, there's a couple of bluesies on the show, actually. And, you know, come to think of it, I don't think there is one Explorer on the show. You see, again, I barely look at the photos. I pretty much just rename them and file them. So I sometimes get a little bit lost. But I've been thinking about this over the last few days. There's something about Rolex and the way they handle two-tone. It's one of the best in the industry for that reason. I think if I was to pick up a Rolex, a two-tone is quite the nice gesture from the group. And but not for everyone, as Ryan says, absolutely. It's very bright. It's very in your face, and that could divide opinion. It does feel like a watch that sits in that 80s, 90s era still. You know what I mean? But there's some great stories. I have lots of friends whose fathers handed them down this particular watch, the original, the five-digit references, and they just love them to bits. You know, it's all you need. You got dress, you got a bit of sports. Why you have two-tone on a diver? No idea. But hey, thank you, Amar, for this. Next from Alon, and I think Alon might be in the chat, but it's a 1969 first-gen Flightmaster. Really nice shot. We get to see all the corrosion on the dial. I don't know what this dial should look like. And Blue Shirt saying, Junior is tagging us in. I was just researching that when I came on. I don't know what I was talking about. Sorry for jumping in there. And Scott saying, thank you for having the show. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Stuck at home since March. Love Rolex two-tone. Yeah, Scott, I mean, it's a great time where we all get to just enjoy what everyone else is wearing. I don't know if you are new to the show. The idea behind this was to, courtesy of Zane, by the way, Zane is in the chat, gave me an idea to run a show based on, not run a show, but just discuss watches belonging to people. Maybe just do a few wrist shots as a part of a segment. And so many submissions came in that it became a show. And the idea is that we get to celebrate what people are wearing instead of being marketed to about what is popular, what is not. Anyway, watch habit, welcome. Your watches are going to be last, I think. I'm pretty sure I've filed them as last because some really great pieces that came in from you. And why settle for 3 dials when you can have 4? Absolutely. So yeah, 1969, you can see this piece. I mean, the case is held up pretty well. Goes to show that steel can really take a knock and still keep rolling. But that dial fade, I've never seen this before. I mean, look at those subdials. It's amazing. It's like this watch has been swimming in its lifetime. Really nice balance of colors. You know, the 60s and 70s, they were just going all out with colors, you know, most days. But there's such a nice selection of pieces on. I really hope you enjoy. We're going to have vintage. We're going to have some modern, but some great vintage pieces. That's all I'll say. All the vintage pieces that you would want to see in a lineup, I think you'll be getting them during the show. So Alan, thank you for sending this in. I'm sure, I think you were, there you are. Awesome. Welcome. This is quite the interesting piece. Can honestly say I've never seen a dial look like this before. Am I right in saying that this has to do with water getting in or sun, or it's some form of corrosion? It doesn't feel like this was naturally this faded, you know, camel brown. I don't know what you would even call it. It's almost like a gutter pipe that's been left out in the sun for 50 years, you know? Okay, gonna get in. So thank you, Alan, for this. And we're gonna move on next to Arthur, who sent in, the piece is called an Innomino. And he references this as a Panerai ancestor. I'm gonna try and remember the story right. Truth is, welcome. Champagne color, Mr. Chapman, thank you. So let me try and get this reference right. So it's called I'm probably going to botch it, but it's Anonimo, Panerai ancestor. That's what I've labeled it as. And basically what happened was, what is the group? Was Panerai sold to Richemont or Swatch Group? I'm so bad with I'm so bad with company ownership. But basically this group is still in-house Italian made and is right next door to Panerai. Uses the same kind of aesthetic. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but I mean, look where the crown is. It's very vintage inspired and old school. Interesting use of balance on the dial. We've got a bright pink loomed hand here. And let me jump to the loom shot. We get a better look at this. I can honestly say I've never seen this piece before, but hell, it's pretty legible in the dark, no? It's got a power reserve on the left by the looks of things. Is this a 24-hour time? I don't know. I'll have to jump back. Nice seeing a bit of a loom shot. We get a few of them. Definitely not to everyone's tastes. I can see everyone's a bit divided on the piece. But I can honestly say I've never seen a family. I mean, this is, again, Italian-owned brand that's not under the Swatch or the Richemont group. But it still is a part of the Panerai name. If I'm not mistaken, they were together back in the day and have since divided up. So, Arthur, thank you for sending this in. I've got to keep the truck rolling because we're gonna get caught up. Could be UV erosion. Talking about the Speedmaster. Okay, I think this is from the same author. I'm pretty sure this is the same submission he sent in. So this is his Aquaterra, and this was the first watch that he ever bought. I think that's how I framed it as first. So I'm guessing first watch that he ever got. Look at the use of blues everywhere. These little Aquaterras. I discussed the Globemaster this week. I don't know if you caught the video, but looked at its aesthetics, and we can see just how different the two watches are when you place them together. The Aquaterra is much more sports-based, where the Globemaster tries to be a bit more dress-oriented. It's clearly going after the Datejust in the way it's styled. But the Aquaterra is an interesting beast, to say the least. And I don't know why I rhymed that, but welcome all of you who are joining. It's great to have you all here. And I'm just getting warmed up. This is the first time I've done the show in what, a week, 2 weeks? What's my current watch collection? Still just the Omega. You know, I started the channel with homage watches. I'd actually like to get into that discussion. Maybe I'll do a collection review one day. But my collection's really basic. I've sold everything off. Smith's Everest, Chronotac, which is basically an homage to an Explorer 2 1655, and this little Omega that I'm rocking. But I mean, you really don't need much to enjoy the watches that you have. It's a strange thing, that the philosophy behind watches and how we get into it, it's difficult to really hone in on, you know, and talk about. It's a very deep hobby. I'm going to be doing a video, actually, believe it or not, Ron, since you're in the chat. And this is also from Arthur, by the way, Planet Ocean and the Seamaster Professional. We'll look at that now. I've just thought about a great idea of a video, just basically talking about, are watches worth their price? Funny you actually mentioned it, Ron. I drew a blank when you asked me that question earlier. And it's going to be good. I mean, I designed a graph, a couple of graphs, trying to illustrate just how value versus bang per buck sort of relates. And just when you spend so much, how much do you get out of it? All of this should be a nice topic. I'm going to actually sit down and maybe do a write-up for it tomorrow and get a recording done over the course of this week about it. But it's nice to look into the philosophy. I think in that discussion, I'll be talking a bit about my reason for getting into watches in the first place and just what they mean to me as products, because at the end of the day, they are just products. But they are products that are designed with zero obsolescence in mind. They're actually designed to live longer and longer and longer, as opposed to so many things that are just bought and sold and broken, you know? Okay, getting back to this Planet Ocean quickly and the Seamaster Professional. This watch really looks great on a rubber strap. Something about its simplicity with the rubber, and it's not too, you know, oversized when it does have a strap. The straps generally bring down the presence quite a lot. And this Planet Ocean, I think this is a 39 mil. He loves his Omegas. This is all from Arthur again. And I've missed all of you in the chat. So I'm going to jump back while jumping to a modern Vulcan cricket. What's hilarious is that sometimes, you know, when it rains, it pours. On this occasion, I think we have a couple Vulcan crickets that were sent in just arbitrarily, you know. David saying no watches are worth their price. Every manufacturer margin is off the scale. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there is a cut. There's definitely a cutoff point, and it's that sweet spot that you need to find. And I think that's what's going to make the discussion pretty good. Is that there is super expensive just for ridiculous reasons, and then there is super affordable. You're getting a great watch out of it, but then there's a midpoint, meeting point, which is ironically the place where most of us, we talk about the watches. We talk about like what, Rolex, Omega, JLC, could say Breitling in a few areas, Tudor. Those brands sit in that sweet spot when it comes to value and bang per buck. And yeah, mechanical watch is already obsolete, so it's timeless. Shite out. You're right. And you're talking, and Chris Edward saying, I respect Omega fans, but I can't handle the muffin. I guess you're talking about these beautiful warts on the side. I mean, that's the reason why I didn't pick up one of these modern pieces. Difficult. There's lots to talk about, talking about just where brands are going when they're modernizing their pieces. Spock's watch. Vulcan cricket. I get it. Thank you, Eric Bell. And nice to have you here. Didn't see you earlier. Yeah, so the Vulcan is an interesting piece. Talk about the movement. And speaking of which, we have a movement shot right here. 25 jewels. I don't know if these are heat blued screws or if they're just painted blue. But the Vulcan cricket is quite a vintage piece. I don't know if the second one on the show is going to be vintage or not. But yeah, Arthur, thank you for sending all of these in. 1 crown is enough. I agree. I mean, when we're talking about these pieces that have a bit more of a different function, you know, this being for the actual alarm, the wind-up function, something else. Okay, so I've got to try and balance out the chats and everything else. What is the fourth hand for in the Vulcan? It's to do with the alarm. It's very much like a Memovox, if I'm not mistaken, where you just wind it at the top and you set it to a certain time. You pull out the crown to one position, you adjust this hand to move around the dial depending on where you want it to hit on the hour. And I don't know if it's minute hand related or if it's hour hand related. You wind it up, you pull the crown out to adjust, and then it buzzes on your wrist. That's essentially it. Yeah, but I mean, I wanted to talk about the Memovox the other day. You should see what my preparation is, my notes that I set up for these shows and for the videos that I do. Just an idea comes to mind, I jot it down and then jump to something else. So Arthur, thank you for all of these pieces, and we are going to jump to some pretty heavy hitters for the show to begin with, from Barry. He didn't give me the reference for this piece, but I can see that it is a dual time. And we very seldomly see AP dual time Royal Oaks nowadays. And this looks quite modern. So maybe someone can clear it up. I think if Zane is in the chat, he'll be able to inform us a little bit more about the reference to this piece and if it's just how old, how new this watch is. But I enjoy a complicated dial. And I think on this watch in particular, Royal Oaks with a bit of an added complication to its dial, it's appreciated. The aesthetic of the watch, that's another story, but the complication alone. So we have a power reserve on the left-hand side here. We have a date complication on the right, and then we have our second time zone. I mean, with minutes and hours, it's just great. Why you need to worry about the minutes beats me, but you know, it's a much more complete looking clock in this setup. He sent it to me in black and white, so you get a good idea of the contrast and the noir effect, you know, and yeah, it's very pretty. I'm going to jump back to all of you in the chats because it's a dual time. There are very few of them. Very interesting. Thanks, Zane. AP looking, really good looking. I have this, again, recommend you watch the video. I called it something like AP Royal Oak design, love it or hate it. And I try and divide my argument between some days I wake up, I think it's great. Other days I find it to be an abomination. And most of the time I'm just left questioning. Is this the best watch? Is this not the best watch? How was it? Why was it designed the way it was? It's good. It's a bit more structured than what I'm saying now, but it's a 36, you believe, BS. That'd be amazing if that's the case. Are you sure? I feel like this looks more like a 15300. I don't know. I'm terrible with references for most pieces. Check the 5 and the 7 indices, as mentioned. Nice placement. I was about to say that actually. I was looking as I was watching this minute hand. We have plots, small dots instead of batons. And I must say, I do prefer the rounded batons instead of the squared off because it corresponds with the hour and minute hand a lot better. It's difficult to see it without some natural light since it is in black and white. And there's talk about wrist clock and I want one, but I hate myself for it. You know, it's a strange thing. I talk about this watch and in the end conclude with something like, for me in particular, someone who loves design, it's like the perfect marriage because one day I wake up and I hate the thing. I think it's just, it's abysmal. It's just a brick. Other days I look at it and go, this is the most clear and unique design we've probably ever seen in the watch space. And compared to the Nautilus, I'd be picking up one of these because this is like the prototype. You know, this is the original, the one that set the standard prior to the Nautilus and all the Vacherons and everything else that came after it, the nautilised effect. It's missing the day-night indicator with the dual time. So it's an earlier version, so 5 years. Thanks for that, Zane. Zane knows his high horology stuff. Symmetry across subdial centers looks off. That's an interesting point as well. You can see that the power reserve is actually set inwards a little bit more. I wish I could like highlight my mouse a bit more. But if we look at these 3 points, you can see that it's almost like a isosceles triangle. I don't know, obscure. Don't talk about geometry with me. It's 10 o'clock in the UK. Going to hit some more coffee and let's get back in. And Bud's saying I would get a Royal Oak or an Aquanaut instead of a Nautilus. The Aquanaut is really growing on me. There's going to be a few more. There's going to be a few in the show as well. Here's another one from Barry. It's a 116520. And the Aquanaut is a piece that is definitely growing on me. We talk about the numeral placement, the simplicity on the dial. There's just a handful of pieces that always brings me back. In fact, I've said this a few times when it comes to really deciding on a watch that you love and enjoy. It has to be something that continually pulls you back for a different reason, whether it's the numerals, whether it's the size of the case, the proportions, the balance. There's so many aspects and elements. I want to get into that a bit more in the future, but I think that's so important for a watch. And honestly, it's a watch you'll never get tired of if that's the case. if there's always something that continually intrigues you about it, you know. Okay, Molt. Truth is, it's a monkey shoulder. I think that's what they call it. First time I've tried it, not bad. So this Daytona, if Mark P is in the chat, he's just picked up one of these over the last few months and he's loving it. I mean, it is an achievement. I think the Daytona is an achievement. I've always thought of it as a trophy, believe it or not. I love watching Le Mans and Daytona, all those races. And I've always thought if I ever won one of those races, I would love to get a two-tone Daytona as a award, as a trophy. So I feel like to cap off your collecting, a Daytona is a good choice. And there's one particular model that I love. Kenneth, monkey shoulder is a great drink. Not bad. It is a blend, and it is quite pricey. I was surprised, actually. But it does have a nice, long-lasting effect, which is great. I need to get some single malts, though. These blended whiskies, they're good, but they can be rough. Not baboon shoulder. Okay, I'm going to move on. There's so much talk about Rolex. Another shot from Barry, and now we're getting into something much more interesting. Now, this looks to me like a Dirty Dozen piece, but it looks so clean, and I just don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's been redialed. I don't know if it has been polished up. I have no idea. But this looks like one of the Dirty Dozen issued pieces, talking about the British military and all of that. Beautiful looking watch. There's something about these pieces that's just timeless, simple. Speaking of which, next week we'll be looking at more military issued pieces. And Shaitan's saying, a Rolex AD manager described me the Daytona as being a collector's trophy. Now, I've always thought of it as something that you get given as a ceremony, a ceremonial piece, you know? I want to talk about that more in detail one day. So I don't know what this piece is, if it is in fact a reissue, if it's, because I mean, this dial is just so clean. I can't believe that this is a watch from the 50s. I mean, from the 40s, excuse me. Looks like it. But yeah, Dirty Dozen. I mean, there's been so much talk about this piece over time. And next we're going to jump to a Patek. And I have no idea what the reference is. So please, can Zane in the chat, if you're here, tell us what this reference is. I look at the lugs on this piece and it reminds me of, I'm thinking of 50-53 references, you know, with the officer's case back. I feel like this is sort of like a late 90s, early 2000s reference. It must be a 50 something. We have sub-seconds, we have a date complication, moon phase, 48-hour power reserve. So I'm recognizing this movement. This is the same movement that they use in the reference 5712 Nautilus, no? But I have absolutely no idea what this piece is. So please, can you tell me? Gorgeous looking watch, though. I love the fact that he's using these, I don't even know what you call these hands. I think of them as King of Spades hands almost, you know? They don't look like Breguet hands, but they do have that classical cathedral effect to them. Very nice and clean. It's definitely not up everyone's alley. It's not everyone's tastes. And I do feel like this has an officer's case back, but I'm right. Watch habit. What am I right about? A classic 240 movement, 50-54. How did I get that? Thank you, Zane. So I was thinking 50-53 as a piece that stuck into my head recently because it's a gorgeous looking piece. I recognize the case styling. Nice looking piece. Everyone's talking about how they hate Rolex. It's so good. Anyway, so it's a nice piece, and thank you for all of these, Barry. I think there's a few more from him, so let's carry on with the list. And as we go, Reverso. I don't know what this is. Might be a Grand Reverso. It's got a sub-second, so I'd imagine it's maybe the large scale variant. But this is such a good shot. I mean, let's get right in and look at the reflections. Like I've said many times, if you do submit a Reverso, it's almost mandatory that you send in a reverse side of the case as well. But I guess this probably has a solid back. Maybe it has a clear back where we get to see the movement. I'm not sure. But the guilloche is great. I mean, not much comes close to a Reverso. There's just something about the idea that it is its own animal entirely. And that even though its design is 30 years old, I think what really saved this watch was the manufacturing. The idea that the Reverso case is just built like, you know, a Mercedes-Benz door. You open it up, you close it, and you get that thump. You know that it's just secure, ready to go, can take a hit and keep going. And the simplicity of how the case was cut, just simple striations along the top and the base, clean, elegant, practical. I still, to this day, am drawn back to the reference, what is it, the 1931 tribute piece, because there's so much to offer in its simplicity. So another great piece from Barry. Also enjoy the numerals, the use of numerals and the way they all have little serifs on them. I mean, it's just so clean and concise. Another one from Barry. This is an Explorer. In the beginning, he sent it to me and he said it was a 50-30 or somewhere around there. But this is actually a 5500. So this is your pre-1016 Explorer. It falls into that category. I'm sure many are going to be happy about seeing Rolex on the screen. Love the Reverso. Yeah, it is interesting, right, Dylan? And I think, Dylan, your pieces will be coming up very soon. We're still stuck on B, and we've almost been going for, 35 minutes at this point. So the 5500, this falls in line with the Commando Rolex, no? And there's all sorts of debate going on about Rolex being the pimp watch and everything. I feel like there's going to be lots of Rolex debate, as always. You know, it's a divisive subject. I'm not someone who is eager to get myself a Rolex at this point in time, which is crazy, right? Because that's generally what we all talk about most of the time. But I do, in 10 years' time, maybe, get myself one Rolex and just be done with it. Trophy watch, as was said by, I think, Shy-Town earlier. There's one piece in the Rolex family that really has caught my attention. But this piece is very unique. I mean, the case, not just the case, but the crown, the use of precision. I mean, that's pretty much a telltale sign that this is a pre-Explorer. It's one of the early pieces. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is a Commando variant. They had a Commando dial very similar to this back in the day. Okay, going to carry on. Thank you for this, Barry. And last but not least, there's a few more from Barry. So this is a Speedmaster, and I immediately, it came to mind, I was thinking this is the Tokyo Olympic edition, but it's not. It's got 1969 printed on the dial. I feel like this is it's another special edition of the trillions of editions out there. So if anyone could clear up what this piece is, to me, that would be great. But I really enjoy the Panda aesthetic. I think it's so nice. Don't know so much about the 42mm size with a Panda dial. It looks fairly large. And with a white dial, the scale, the piece would look pretty big on the wrist. But it is a professional. I mean, it has screw down. I'm sure this is a manual wind. So it has lots of little quirks about it. Okay, I think this is an Apollo 11. I don't know what year it's from. I would imagine early 2000s. That's when they started really getting into the reissues. And Dylan's saying, take your time. I think everyone just likes being here talking watches. Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, I mean, I've got to pace myself too. It's not just keeping up with everyone. I would love for this to be a 5-hour show and for me to just chat with all of you. I think next week we'll have a bit more of a rounded discussion around a subject instead of wrist chart week. We can pause it for 1 week. But yeah, there's mention about the subdials. Look, two-centered. That's another thing, watch habit. There's an element about the subdials on these pieces that confuses me. And that's the idea that they're also squashed together. It doesn't feel as integral, if you know what I mean. Nice to see that they don't overuse the text too much on their dials. But yeah, I mean, you don't see this piece often. I'd imagine it also has a Hesselite crystal. Looks like the crystal's had a few scratches over time. Yeah, you can see by the reflection, this looks pretty Hesselite-ish. Okay, going to carry on through here from Barry. VC. Okay, so this is what he was telling me. He's saying that he has AP, AP, VC, and PP. And this is his Vacheron. Again, don't know the reference. I don't know if many will, but it'll be a 24-hour show one day. Zane, you know, I wish. If I had enough coffee, maybe, possibly maybe. And Bud Owen saying, what about a Watches and Wonders discussion next time? Watches and Wonders is they changed the name SIHH into that, right? I'm behind when it comes to dealing and marketplace and all of that, so forgive me. We can talk about the sad non-release from Rolex and other brands this year, and there's been lots of watches being spoken about. We've seen some new releases from brands recently, no? I'm trying my best to keep up with social media while preparing stuff for the channel, so it gets a bit difficult at times. So yeah, please, can someone tell me about this piece? Because I have absolutely no idea. Again, we have a power reserve on the left. We have a date complication on the right. Running seconds at the base. Really enjoy the use of the text and how it's been spaced on the dial. And the guilloche. It's not the clearest photo, but we get a good idea. Also, a good use of Roman numerals on the dial. You get to see them all, and none of them have been cut out and replaced. I mean, this is really classic. We have stepped lugs. I mean, this is really trying to play into the 30s and 40s era pieces back in the day. And Chris Edwards saying maybe a chat on JLC would be fun. Absolutely. I was thinking, I actually prepared, I'm going to check. Thank you for all of these, Barry. We're going to move on next to Brian, who sends in, oh, sweet. Okay. There's a few who really don't like Nomos, so this should pull up a few hairs, bring out the hackles. I made a note of what I wanted to talk about in a separate show. The greatest watch designs were founded in the 1950s, ? Something along the lines of that. Why are 1950s watch designs so iconic? And I want to talk about just where the sports watch was really established in and around that time and how that aesthetic has changed. That was the thought for next week's discussion, which could be fun. We could talk about everything from Rolex to Omega, JLC, because there's so many. I mean, if I had to list off all the watches that came out during the 50s, you would be horrified at the amount. Okay, getting into these. Nomos Orion on the left and a 777 on the right. No, I just called it Seiko Turtle. And this was very much an homage to the 6105. No, it's very much like the Willard in a few ways. And nice pairing. I mean, you don't see these two pieces side by side. If Ron the Shrink is in the chat, I know he hates Nomos with a passion. And of all the Nomos pieces in the family, this Orion is the one that I would be most interested in. Talking about the lugs, I think the idea of this classical styling is very good. But I feel like Nomos should take a few more risks with their designs. It's nice to be restrained, but using the Bauhaus motif, you could be a lot more explorative with their pieces. As I mentioned, asked a question about my view on the Mido Ocean Star. I think there actually might be one on the show. I might be wrong. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Sadly, when it comes to designs, a lot of the time I have to have a clear idea of what I'm talking about. I can't just think of. So again, the best thing is with these more open-ended shows, we'll have one next week, I think. I can pull them up and we can have a good look at the details. So sorry if I can't get to your question. My brain is running a bit loose. Hard to hate on any watch brand. All that matters is the piece of people love their babies. Yeah, absolutely. And Delmar, thank you so much. You're floating in and out, East Coast, US, beautiful day. Go and enjoy it outside. I mean, the weather is really improving in the Northern Hemisphere. Enjoy all the sun. So Ron does like the Nomos World Timer. Interesting. It's the one watch that I don't really like from Nomos brand. I think the World Timer is just completely out of the window and complicated. It's great how we have such different tastes, Okay, I'm going to carry on. I think, Les, I think you sent in some watches as well. And Curtis, your Glycine is going to be featured very soon. I was so close to featuring your Glycine for the cover of the show. And the only reason why I didn't was because we never see 6239s in the flesh. Okay, going to carry on. Again, this is quite a good clue for what's coming out next week, Wednesday, as a video. I spent way, way too much time. And there we go, from Brandon, another Vulcan cricket. And this looks like a variant with a sunburst gray dial. I really like the way everything's been spaced and proportioned on the dial of this piece. Nice strap as well. It's like what is this? A distressed nylon? What would you call this? I don't even know what the material would be. Oh, geez. And I didn't even thank you for the super chat, Delmar. Thank you so much for sending it in. And again, go out and enjoy the sun. I mean, this is the time. And Curtis mentioning the iconic pieces of the 50s. There's so many. I mean, just of the 5, there's so many more as well. Panerai with the Luminor. What else? You mentioned the Glycine and, of course, the Breguet, Breitling, Navitimer. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. It'll be a lot of fun to talk about. And thank you, Thomas. Favorite watch of the show. Everyone vote. That would be a great choice as well. It's so difficult because I would want to run back and have a look at the pieces, Is that strap made of carpet? Chris says. I have a feeling it might be a bit of bearskin. Really enjoy the use of the gradient on the dial and the balance between the batons and the numerals. It's nice and clean. You look at it quickly and you get to see the placement. I don't know so much about the hands, but I guess it's keeping to tradition. So Brandon, thank you for sending this in. Next is from Bruno. Now this is cool. Okay, let's try and get right in and have a look. So the story behind this, are you ready for this? The quality is not as clear as possible, but you get the idea. Father's World War II Orator. Orator? I don't even know how to pronounce the name. Orator or Orator. So this watch was worn by his father all the way through Second World War. Looks like it has a telemeter scale, if I'm not wrong. That's a pretty good telltale sign that it is a vintage piece. And I mean, these watches, I have gotten so into looking Velcro. Absolutely, that could be the case, Curtis. I've gotten so into military watches and studying them and trying to just understand how these pieces fared over their lives. I mean, I could just focus this entire channel on military-based watches because I just find it fascinating. You know, in those environments that they get set in, they were never designed to work in these spaces, but they did. And in areas where mechanics just failed, they still worked. Great bit of storytelling. And I think Blue Shirt nailed it. It's a what did he say? Sorry, I just missed it now. No, was it Blue Shirt? Tweed. That was from Maina in Japan. This looks like a tweed strap. I couldn't think of the word top of my head. This looks like the kind of tweed material we would expect. So really nice piece. Thank you for sending this in, Bruno. And he sends me another. Okay, and this is another piece from him. This is his Tag Monaco. Not a Heuer Monaco, but a Tag Monaco. The way you can tell the difference between the two. The Heuer Monaco has Heuer on the dial and has the crown on the left-hand side because of the caliber 11 movement. Tag Monaco has everything aligned. And he's sitting in a 1978 Triumph Spitfire, which is a bit of a nice setting. Monaco is a peculiar watch, right? Really enjoyed the write-up I did on this a good few months ago, discussing its controversial coolness, where it sits, how it competed with Zenith and all those other brands. Is this the Walter White watch? I'm pretty sure he wears this piece. James, welcome to the show. Founder Timeless Capital. Great to have you here. We've spoken about your Paul Newman, but there's another great piece that's going to come up just now. I'll take the car. Yeah, it's definitely a divisive watch. Heuer and Tag Heuer and the brand has seen its ups and downs. But the design of the piece, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of a television case and the square styling, they're very sought after. I mean, the original Heuers, everyone loves. It's peculiar. Designs of that time, it's amazing. The Constellation video, I try to address it in a way that the Constellation changed ever so slightly through the time periods, you know, talking about the fashions of the time, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, never had a clear language. We can see this is right on the cusp of, you know, late 60s, early 70s when they were transitioning. Philly's dad saying, yes, that's the one Jesse presents to Walter on his birthday near the end. Fascinating. I didn't even think I was focusing on watches back in the day. And it's crazy when you go back and you start really looking at people's watches and shows and movies, the things that you missed, right? Okay, yeah, Monaco never fails to start a conversation. Absolutely, Les. I mean, it's just so peculiar, right? Smith Styles, that was from Eric, of course. And let's see, is there any print that looks like could be Smith there, maybe? And he's talking about Smiths, the clockmaker back in the day. Everything was branded by Smiths in the 60s, 70s, 50s. I missed the Paul Newman from Bud Owens. I can jump back up to it, actually. We're quite close to the top. This is also from Bruno, and it's a Hamilton Khaki Pioneer chronograph. And this looks just like the original Fliegers from back in the Flieger chronographs from back in the day. Yeah, I've been so busy with my write-ups, I kind of lose track. I've been writing about watches of the French armed forces, and that should be coming out one day soon, I hope. But crazy story how German design basically influenced all of the chronographs that we then saw, the Breguet Type 20 and etc., thanks to Hanhart as a brand. And I think we might be seeing one in the show as well. Anyway, you can see all the cues. I mean, the elements like the bezel, rounded bezel, onion style crown, just the numerals. This looks eerily almost exactly the same as the Hanhart. I hope I'm saying the name right. Hanhart. Is that right? I don't know. Not going to try and throw a German accent in there. But yeah, it's right at the beginning of the show. I just briefly, so I don't really talk about it much. I kind of brush over it. But anyway, carry on. French onion from Truth Fears. Great to have you all here. Again, if I've missed you in the chats, I apologize. I am I'm struggling with keeping up and presenting, so I hope you don't mind. Okay, thank you for these, Bruno. Next from Cedar Canoe. And Cedar sends in some of the best vintage pieces I have seen in a long time for the show. 2 vintage divers. Be ready for this, everyone. Cedar Canoe sends in a Lucerne CQ. Now, the brand Lucerne, don't know much about the brand. Can imagine it's French, but it's just exactly the same as what we know from the Glashütte Senator. What do they call it? The 65, the 60, I don't know what, the 68. What do they call it? It's also called the CQ, no? But this is an original. And you can see all the charismatic elements that we now know from the CQ that we see from GO. Looks like a new GO, absolutely. This is an original from 60s. I don't think he gave me the date, but this is, kind of like 63-ish era, And fascinating looking piece. Something about these vintage watches, the character that they had back in the day. I love it. I love talking about military spec pieces, but I also love talking about the history. Looks like a Blancpain, and she says. It does share those elements. Recommend you look up, I think it's called, they called it the 68. Glashütte original, 68. I don't know, the CQ. Just say CQ and you'll find it as its name. But I've never seen an original in the flesh before. Oops, let's get back there. And Junior, thank you so much for the super chat. Time and effort. I mean, this is not an effort. This is a joy. This is a pleasure. This is really just a time when I can sit back and enjoy myself, because most of the time it's the writing, it's the recording, it's the editing. I find it so peculiar. I don't know what it must be like for everyone else who gets to just enjoy the stuff that comes out instead of seeing the 6-hour process that goes into the preparation and the editing and everything. So I must say this dial aesthetic is growing on me, but it's not the most legible, I would say. It's very big, looks like a clock. Anyway, so this is the one piece that he sent in. I mean, it's just gorgeous. But next, are you ready for this? Here we go. Rodania. And it's called a Rodania hand wind. That's what he calls it. What does this look like, ladies and gentlemen? I'll give you any guesses. And as per usual, it's hilarious how, I mean, I did this big unveiling video a couple of months ago, talking about just how the Speedmaster didn't have the original dial design and that Rodania had it first. And in fact, the story goes that these companies were using different dial manufacturers, different case manufacturers, and they just paired off the pieces with each other. Rodania seems to have shared almost everything with Omega. Well, no, they didn't, but I mean, they shared the same dial manufacturer. This dial looks 100% like a Railmaster or a Seamaster from the 50s era. Sword hands are a little bit different, but I mean, just look at it. It's hilarious how much they shared the same DNA. And the Speedmaster as well. Who copied who? Evan says, who was first? Eric Bell, I mean, whoever the dial manufacturer was for Rodania, that was first. I don't think Omega was first in either side, talking about the Speedmaster or this dial layout, which is hilarious. And it's just because of marketing and because of a brand being a lot more powerful than a smaller piece. Rodania copied Railmaster, Truth Here says. Okay. Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, you always learn something new about doing this. and James, yeah, thank you. It does indeed. It's crazy, right? Really enjoyed it. I thought this was quite a nice eye-opener. So I'll try and get right in so you can have a good look. I'm trying to rotate the screen a bit. I just find it hilarious how, again, dial manufacturers would share their dials between companies, and through a parts bin, the company would say, okay, I'm going to take case A with dial B, bezel C, put it together, sell it out. There was no rhyme or reason with regards to just how watches were made back in the day. Rodentia. That's good. Thanks, Truth Fears. Okay, so Cedar Canoe, these are great. I mean, as when we talk about two divers, talk about just how unique and different they are, but also just how we see them being redesigned nowadays and used for other brands. The Rodania Seamaster 300. Yeah, right. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. There we go. So how's this? This is from Sevi. Sevi is the man who showed us his vintage film camera the other week, and he was driving a 2CV. He loves his old stuff. And I was just thinking about Hanhart as a brand. This is pretty much the closest that you will get to an homage to those original pieces. So the brand is called, I'm going to butcher this, Tutima F2 with a MiG-21 multifunction cockpit chrono. Oh my goodness. That looks, I'm guessing he's talking about this. So the MiG chronograph dial, I mean, that's great. This looks exactly like Hanhart of the 50s. And it's an amazing story. I really look forward to sharing it with you. I spent a lot of time trying to categorize everything to get across the history of watches of the French Armed Forces. But the Breguet Type 20 that we know, practically all Type 20 chronographs that we know came out of this original design thanks to Hanhart, which was a German company that was taken over as, well, no, they were contracted to work for, you know, it's amazing. Story is great. The 50s was a crazy time, you know. So going to carry on with this. So thank you so much for this, Sevi. I think this is all you sent in, but really enjoy this piece. Every detail that we now know, that we see from the Breitlings of the time, the Breguets of the time, all the Type 20 chronographs uses these aesthetics because it was originally a German design. That's a funny story. I look forward to sharing it with all of you. Okay, going to carry on through from Chris, and he sends in his Aqua Terra. Now, I want to talk about this piece briefly. I find it to be an attractive watch from the family. Okay, and I've missed a lot of you in the chat. Your artifact saying coin edging, very nice. It is. It's one of the real character elements of these pieces of the late 40s, 50s era, sort into the 60s as well. So unique. All it's missing now is an onion crown. And this whole idea of highlighting the pusher in red was to just alert the wearer that they can't push it unless the chronograph's not working. You know, it's so old school. I love it. Love old school, you know, hodgepodge design elements that no one thought through. So this was also his first watch from Chris. He bought it recently and he just loves it. Coaxial. It's a coaxial reference, and the reference number is 2503.50. Have to be one of the best bang per buck Aqua Terras you can find nowadays. It's probably one of the originals from back in the day, but it's such an elegant piece. It really, what I like is that the batons aren't loomed. Looks nice and clean, polished, simple, but not ostentatious, doesn't shout. Looks great, right? I think the size as well, it's about 39 mils in size, so it's superb. Going to catch up with you. It's nice that you're all chatting. Ron saying I insulted your Bund strap. Yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone, of course. And I mean, I think criticism is great. I think the fact that we all have our own opinions on things, that's what I like to try and bring across as much as possible, as hard as I do. Sometimes it can be very difficult when everyone has their own opinions, and I think that's important to share. And what I love about these shows is that we get to see a much more intimate view into what people wear. So I really enjoy this piece. I think it's very understated and simple. You can see the loom only works on the edges of the batons. Nice and clean. I feel like the Aqua Terra should take a feather out of its cap and try and be a bit more toned down in the way it presents itself. I mean, look at that. Elegant, simple, basic. It's all you really need for a day-to-day piece, right? Hitting the coffee. I'm enjoying iced coffee. I'd realized that iced coffee, you know, when you drink anything cold is a great vasodilator. And being able to drink it cold means that it will deliver the caffeine to my brain a lot faster, you know, because blood vessels shrink, and so it goes. That works a lot more efficiently. Okay, catching up with all of you in the chat. I hope I'm keeping up with the chat. I've just refreshed the stream. It's great. Okay, good. I'm going to carry on. So thank you for this, Chris. Superb piece. I think it's just so understated and basic. Did I say constrictor? I hope I did. Monkey shoulder and iced coffee. That's my formula, bud. A little bit hammered, a little bit energized, and it just works a treat. Omega compares well to GS, but it's just too much. It's so much better looking. Thanks for that, Rich Buddy. Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the most elegant Aquaterras I've seen in a long time. Nice and basic. I didn't even know this reference. I actually thought these references only came in quartz, but this is in fact a coaxial. And it looks like my internet signal's dropping, and I hope that's not the case. My laptop looks like it's struggling to keep up. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to carry on. Thank you for this, Chris. Next is from Charles, and I think he is in the chat. He sent a Blancpain bathyscaphe, and I'm going to refresh the stream once again. I don't know if my laptop is just struggling to keep up or not. Please let me know if the signal speed's fine and I haven't broken up or anything daft. And Rich Buddy, I think I said welcome. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here, brother. So the Blancpain bathyscaphe, I find it to be such a peculiar watch. The original bathyscaphes, amazing history. Also, I mean, Seiko basically copied their design wholesale. Okay, great, all fine. Thanks, Bud and Robbie. So this piece, I find the chronograph to be a much cleaner placement of elements when we talk about the sub-dials and everything. I just find it to be I'll say this, a peculiar proportioned watch, for sure. Talking about the use of the tiny indexes and batons, I can see where they're going with this. It comes, I mean, you can see clearly that it's using, 60s and 70s related elements, like the very, very classical syringe styled hands of that time. You can see the batons actually have polished plots around them. It looks very much like a watch from the late 60s and 70s. And I'm sure that's the aesthetic they're going for. But the scale of the watch in proportion to the elements, it could be tightened a little bit more. I think it's about 42 or 43 mils. If they just enlarge the plot a bit more. I wanted to do a video talking about this watch a while back. I never did it though, because I thought it would just be too much of a time when I'm just riding on its design too much. But I mean, it's a Blancpain, great piece. The 50 fathoms is a gem. And they still stick this in the 50 fathoms line. Yeah, speaking of which, next week's video will have a Blancpain of sorts featured in it. 43.5, as Thomas Bennett says. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone, but I do like the fact that through its obscurity, it's been able to establish itself in its own space, if you know what I mean. It doesn't just look like your generic diver. It has its own unique standing. I do enjoy the bezel, fully graduated with the 15, 30, 45. It's nice and clean. Offset date window might divide opinion, but also get to see great amount of reflection, radial effect on the dial, which is something many other divers don't even offer. I know the bathyscaphe comes in blue as well, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, it's an elegant piece. And again, I'll say it's nice that it's actually been able to establish itself in its own spot. It's showing off the dial finish, Julian, absolutely. So I'm going to carry on here. Too empty leaves you wanting. That's my original. Oops, I just hit the headset. That's my first take on the piece for sure, Chris. I feel the same way. But teach your own taste, and that's what makes it so cool. Next, this is also from Charles. Are you ready? And I think Charles is in the chat. He sent in 5508 Ghost Bezel. Everyone hates Rolex, but gotta pull up a Rolex as well. Amazing how we get a vintage Paul Newman and vintage sub in the same show. Talking about dressy divers, as Demetrius just says, I think this is a good compromise. Talking about the scale, I mean, these watches were like 37 mils, subtle, under the radar. I just find it amazing that these watches are still around nowadays. I don't hate Rolex. I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely its own piece. I mean, this is what established the Submariner. The 5508 is that one piece that really brought it to the front. And it's so nice and clean. I don't know if this piece originally, had a Bakelite bezel and it's been replaced with aluminium, no idea. But you can see it's ghosted. The patina, the actual tropicalization of the dial is pretty good. You can see the fade is very nice and clean. There's very even plots everywhere. Looks like replacement hands over time. But it's a gilt dial as well. That's something else. Yeah, I mean, I love the size of these watches. Why can't watches go back down to like 39 mils and ride that sweet spot of being just the right size, but not oversized, undersized? it would be nice if we saw a broader selection of sizes for people nowadays. And I do realize I'm zooming in a lot on the screen while I talk. Anyway, it is a gorgeous piece though, right? Dear Artifact. Okay, great. It's so nice that I'm actually keeping up with you in the chat for once. Fantastic. Going to carry on through. A good old honest sub, absolutely. I mean, the real establisher. Okay, Charles, thank you for these two pieces. Couldn't have sent in two more different divers in the family line. The Bathyscaphe, which divides opinion, and the 5508 that probably appeals to even those who really hate Rolex as a brand. I think that's pretty impressive. It's a great piece, right, James? Found a timeless capital. Yeah, it's gorgeous. And dear Artifact, size. More brands should look into the size and presence of the pieces on the wrist. Let's get right into the dial one more time. Have a look at the gilt finishing. Seldom that you see a gilt dial, and gilt basically just means that you see a gold finish to all the parts, like the Submariner text, the Rolex, the rail dial on the outside, or the minute track, sorry. Yeah, sweet. And again, integrated rivet bracelet. It's just been it's been well looked after. I'm sure many parts have been replaced. Notice that the case is also extremely clean. No polishing, really sharp. This probably has been repolished in its life, but it's been thought through. You know, it's been considered. It hasn't just been butchered and thrown on. Okay, going to carry on here. To the next, from Chip. Chip sends in his Seamaster Professional. And this is one element that I didn't highlight about the James Bond Seamaster that was released. As much as I don't really enjoy the patina on the dial as much, they nailed it with the lume on this watch. I mean, look at that. All the complaints that people had about the lume plot at the 12 being too small, I mean, they pretty much eradicated all of those complaints with this. Look at the presence of this piece and the way it plays with the light in the dark. It's a serious diver watch when you just, I don't know why more brands don't make their divers fully lumed on the bezel, you know? And here's another shot. We get quite a good idea of what the watch looks like. I would love to get one of these in hand just to experience it and compare it against my little Seamaster. Having a look at the size. The amazing thing about this piece is its weight. This is all titanium, and the watch sits in about 50 grams on the wrist, which is very impressive. I mean, titanium is pretty expensive material to work with, but the fact that it only weighs 50 grams would probably mean that even though its presence, you know, for someone who has a smaller wrist and is wearing a 42 mil watch, it might be quite difficult for someone to pull it off. But the fact that the watch is virtually weightless, I think, would appeal to people who have smaller wrists and who don't enjoy the heaviness. The visual heaviness is probably still there, but with regards to comfort, I think less weight is the way to go. You know, Omega spray, that's fantastic. But Omega Spray Tan Professional, it's funny. Yeah, they nailed the lume on this watch. I think it looks fantastic. But there's also talk about the price and of course the wart at the top. I mean, all Omega needs to do, if someone's watching from Omega, just send me an email. My email is in the description of this video. All you need to do is re-release an MOD Seamaster the way it should be. Professional case. Use the Speedmaster Professional case. Just make it crisp, clear, simple, beautiful dial. No helium release valve. Keep it basic, and you would have a win. I just want to get this watch in hand just so I can feel the weight of it, because apparently it's unbelievable. So anyway, I'm going to carry on. Thank you for these, Chip. Curtis, our man in the chat. I hope you're still here, Curtis. He is big pilot, and he's flying from LHR to LAX. I don't know where LHR is, but I do know that LAX is Los Angeles. Curtis loves his watches, and I mean, we've featured him a lot on the show. He's rocked a GMT Pepsi for over 30 years, and here he's rocking a Glycine Emin on a RAF strap. I love the paracord. I mean, you can just tell that this guy is like action, you know. London, thank you. London Heathrow. Oh, geez, I'm useless, right, Mr. Perpetual? Okay, and James, Founder Times Capital. It's hard to get used to wearing personally for me. Feels like a toy. Is that so? Is that because of the weight, James? I'd like to know. I'd really like to experience it one day, just to understand what the thinking was. And okay, London, thank you. Thank you, Curtis. Sorry about that. and I'm in England. I know, truth is, you know, I'm from South Africa. Give me a break. I'm from South Africa. I've only been in England for like 5 years of my life, so I'm still catching on to the nomenclature. South Africa and Cape Town is a small place, and it feels like a world in itself, but it really isn't. You come to the Northern Hemisphere, and suddenly you're introduced with so many new things and new people and time zones and all this stuff. It's nuts. Anyway, going to catch up with everything else here. Wearing a Bond NATO, yeah, RAF. I did live in RSA, yeah, truth is. So the Glycine Emin, I can't wait to talk about this watch on Wednesday. It is, I mean, Curtis takes some amazing shots. The original Glycine Emins from the 50s and the 60s, they were sized at 35 mils. And they were so small, but they were just such favorites by men in the forces because they were affordable, reliable, had the GMT function. First glance, I mean, it just looks so complicated. I think the one detractor at first glance is just how busy the dial looks. You have 24-hour time on the dial. You also have 5-minute marks on the inside. I do like the fact that the GMT hand is actually red, so you get to see. I hope that was at the date. It looks like a GMT hand. The fact that that's highlighted in red, so you can see it a lot easier, is great. This looks like it can actually work out 2 different time zones. That separate hand. I'm not well versed with my glycines, but I do enjoy just what they stand for and how they were established. I look forward to talking about it. Okay, let's talk about Omega and Omega. Yeah, Philly's dad. I say Omega. I don't know. I always have, so I guess I'm going to stick it. Originals were 36 and had 24-hour hand only. Thanks, Curtis. I mean, amazing. The size and the scale of those original pieces. You got to say, imagine flying a Heuer or an AC-130 or any, you know, a Dakota, flying one of those planes and trying to read the time and trying to synchronize and coordinate everything, you know, just determining a time zone with it rattling around. And you've got a little 36 millimeter watch on that's so cluttered. That's the first thing that comes to mind, you know. Otherwise, I mean, great shots. Thank you for these, Curtis. I think you sent in another shot here. I mean, this is awesome. He loves his runway shots. It's so nice seeing it, the plane in the background. You love this piece. This looks like quite the travel watch. That's the co-pilot's job. 3 simultaneous time zones and new models. That is amazing. I mean, that's one step ahead above, you know, many other brands, right? Glycine Emin, I mean, it's a classic. It's an icon, and that's pretty much how I worded in the video. The smaller the watch, the better. I feel for these pieces, a bigger watch is pretty good. What saves the watch? We're going to stick on this for a bit longer. Why not? What saves this watch is the fact that the bezel is one color. It's a lot more monotone in that way. It's not so like busy. It's because I think with two different color schemes, it would be much more visually busy. And presence, I think, is important for this because it has just so much on the dial. But yeah, great piece. And thank you for this, Curtis. Nice seeing it in action on show. Next from David, he sends in a Reverso Grand Sport chronograph. And Reversos and their dials, I mean, there's just so many. Let's try and get right in, have a good look. And he did send me the reverse of the reverse. And there's still discussions about Omega, 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 Omega. Yeah, you know, that's how we go. Is that a big helicopter? I don't know. Anyway, it's nice that you guys are debating amongst yourselves. Right, so this is an elegant dial. I do enjoy the fact that we have not only sword hands, but they correspond with the triangular plots, the batons on the dial. Very nice and clean. You notice that the date complication is centered. This looks like I don't speak French, ladies and gentlemen. If you could please tell me what this means. Array, does that mean full? Does that mean, you know, day or night? Please tell me. I need to brush up on French, learn a bit of Latin and Italian as well. Again, coming out of the Southern Hemisphere, we speak English and a few other languages, but that's about it. Array means stop. Thank you in something. Thank you. I'm useless. Okay, so there we go. That's the one side of the Reverso. And then we turn it around. I mean, what a gorgeous watch. And there was mention about the bracelet. The bracelet is also very unique. Just before we get onto it, let's just have a look at it quick. Great construction. I've been getting into studying about bracelets and just how brands address them differently. This almost beads of rice effect bracelets, I think, very effective. Would be nice to see it in a more brushed finish. I think highly polished gets a little bit too much, but all in all, I think the combination of elements, I forget this is a retrograde chronograph. I mean, look at that. The back looks even better. So you basically run the chronograph at the back and you have the time on the front. I mean, it's just so elegant and simple, no? One of the best reversos I've seen. I think it's fascinating. As a complication, there are so many in the line, in the family. It's very difficult to keep up. So what's the reference? I have no idea, but Owens, it's called a Grand Sport, GRAN Sport Reverso. So have a look, and it's a retrograde chronograph. So going on to Google, you'll probably find it. JLC retrograde chronograph will probably help you find it. But I've never seen one of these before, and I think the black, black dial as well is just so elegant. You've got red highlights, sword hands everywhere. What a beautiful piece, and you get a nice tweed jacket in there. Yeah, beautiful. So thank you, David, for sending this in. I don't know if this is the same David, but oh no, it's not. It's not the same David, but we get a few. Let's see if I can find a better shot. He sent me a few of these. Here we go. This is from a different David. And what you're seeing is what you're seeing. So let's just wait for the screen to catch up on the laptop and we'll get you there. Never seen a reverso like that. Me neither, Nick. This looks awesome. Amazing complication. Absolutely, Rich Buddy. Something, I mean, talking about the idea of a reverso that has the chronograph at the back and you can just set it, let it run, have the time on the front. It makes good use of the reverso feature, you know? You can space out the dials to do different things. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is an original CK2913 7-7. There were 8 generations of this watch over time, between 57 and 62. Now that I own this watch, I need to know my history about it, right? So between about 57 and 62, there were 8 variants, okay? So this being a 7, meaning that you notice it lost its broad arrow on the hour hand, which I think kind of sucks. I love the broad arrow on the hour, but it gained an arrow on the minute hand and the iconic lollipop seconds hand, which was only implemented around the 7, the Mark 7, sorry, the Mark 6, Mark 7, Mark 8, in and around there. This is basically the real inspiration behind the Spectre Bond watch that we saw. So this piece comes from, we can guess, early 60s. I would imagine about 1960. Story behind it goes is that David bought this watch for his dad in 1964, and he wore this piece religiously for his entire life. This was his pride and joy. And as you can see, this watch has seen its life. The Bakelite is all worn off, the bezel, the strap broke over time. I think his father has passed since, and he's obviously inherited it. But there was no understanding about these watches being collectible back then. You know, they were just great watches to buy and wear. And David, I think he told me the story that didn't get box or papers with this watch. He probably bought it secondhand, and it was just bought to be worn. Lived a pretty rugged life. The bracelet broke at a certain stage, and it sounds like his father got rid of it. He threw it away, sadly. But you can just see that this watch has lived properly. What an immaculate dial. I've never seen such a good dial on these watches. The reason why these are so rare and hard to find is because the dials were famous for just falling apart. The radium would just corrode everything. And the way the crowns and everything worked with these watches, they didn't have screw-down crowns. They had Naiad crowns, which basically were very good at depth when you were 100 meters and lower, because the pressure of the water would allow the crown to stay secure and the case wouldn't get any water in. At low depths, easy to get water inside. So it's a bit of a failure point. But yeah, I mean, the reason why these watches are so hard to find, A, these dials just completely corroded away. B, these were worn extremely hard. They were never worn and looked after. They were just used and abused. So yeah, I mean, they're really collectible nowadays. And it's difficult when you want to say, do you want to like clean this piece up? Do you want to replace parts? I would say no. There's a few more shots. They're not the highest resolution, but you get a good understanding. It looks quite interesting without the bezel insert. Anyway, I've just been prattling on about this. I thought this would be a nice highlight for the show. This looks like a Speedmaster bracelet that was put on. I would recommend David finds an original one of these on eBay. They probably cost between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds maybe, and just wear it and enjoy it. I mean, it's incredible how this watch has managed to live. This dial is immaculate. I cannot believe how clean it is. It looks superb. So anyway, yeah, I've been prattling on about this for a long time. It's a great watch. Stories all over that watch, absolutely. But I think it's important, and you know, history and development, and that's why I enjoy this piece so much. I think the fact that it's established itself as this, and it's been able to, you know, make the Planet Ocean a reality, made the Seamaster the way it is. Okay, going to carry on through. Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much for this, David. And next is from Dean. And what's great about this piece? So we featured this at during last week's show. And this was the Plan Pro, he likes to call. Some were calling it a Frankenstein watch because it uses elements from not only the Planet Ocean, but the 2254 that we know. But it is one of the most stunning pieces I think I've ever seen relating to the 2254. And he sent some better shots in so we can have a good look at the details. So let's have a look. This is the piece in hand. You get a good understanding of the dial. Again, because it's a Planet Ocean dial, it has the proper Lumibright lume that we want to see. It uses a Planet Ocean bezel, which looks fantastic. Nice and clean. I'm going to carry on through here. He's taken some great macro shots of it. I mean, come on. Why doesn't Omega make one of these again? Make it again. It's simple. Get rid of the helium release valve and just recreate a 2254 MOD-inspired Seamaster, and they'll have a win on their hands, you know? And Philly's dad promised a brief show. Yeah, it will be 3 hours. I mean, that's just the way it works. You know, when I get into it, I get into it, and coffee and a bit of alcohol just locks me in. It's almost like a parabola effect. Suddenly you hit a rise, and then it's just all guns blazing. Yeah, I think this looks terrific. I really do. All the elements, the bezel is nice and plain. It's not large like you expect from the standard 2254. Just intact, a real intact diver through and through. Can't deny, it looks the business. Why doesn't Omega do this again? Don't know. Just some great shots. We're getting a good look at all the elements. I mean, these are beautiful photographs. And there it is, I think, in the hero pose. Ah, looks great. And I can see everyone's so nice that you're all chatting amongst yourselves for a change and just listening. It's great. I get to take it a bit easier, kick back. Again, for all of you who have just joined, I hope you're all well. I hope you're keeping yourselves occupied and busy. And thank you all so much for joining. It's such a pleasure doing this, and it's really a time when I get to relax. This last week, I did a voice recording that lasted 3 hours. It was intense. The video ended up being 19 minutes in total, but I think you will enjoy it on Wednesday when it comes out. So Badon says, my wife laughed when I said I'd be in my office for 5 hours. Your watch channel is on. Oh, it's flattering, bud. It really is flattering. But it is hilarious, right? What's nice is that you can listen to this as a podcast. You don't necessarily have to watch the show through and through, but yeah. So Dean, thank you for sending this in. Nice seeing this piece together. And now from Dirk. Now Dirk sends in an entire collection. I can honestly say I've never done a collection review on the show, but we can just briefly run through the pieces. He has collected a mass of pieces, and he seems to like his Flieger-inspired watches. You see on the right-hand side, he has many Fortises or Forti, you know. And if the red is too bright for your eyes, apologies, you can lower the brightness on your screen or something. But he's just got a huge selection from Midos and everything in between. And the one watch that really catches my attention, more Fortises. I mean, he just loves them. And the one watch that he says he plans to get, I mean, he's a very varied collector. You can see with Seikos and all the rest. And on the far right, he's also got a Zin here. On the far right, he has my favorite little Tudor Ranger. What do you call it? Never get it right. Tudor North Flag. I call it the Ranger. And he says that his final watch that he wants to pick up to end the collection, he really enjoys the 70s inspired pieces. You can see we have lots of orange hands everywhere. He wants to pick up a Speedmaster Mark II as his final pickup, and then slowly but surely sell off pieces over time. But yeah, I mean, he's a man of many tastes. but he seems to love his Flieger inspired pieces. Yeah, I mean, I can't just sit through all of these. We'll be sitting on this selection for so long. But just know, lots of Fortises and Seikos, but then he's also got a little Tudor in the corner. I mean, I hardly know any of the brands. I mean, it's bad to say, but once you go down the rabbit hole, you struggle with collecting all the pieces, you know, understanding everything. We've got a G-Shock over there, etc. So Dirk, thank you for sending these in. Highly recommend you get a Speedmaster Mark II. If I had the money on me, I'd probably be getting one myself as well. I think they are so underrated. And then from Dylan, and Dylan sends in a simple, elegant Seiko SKX 007 with a fully loomed bezel and minute track. Never seen this before. Seiko modding community, Seikling. Please make Forti a thing. Yeah, right. A lot of watches for sure. So this watch, I mean, the Seiko modding community, it's a world of its own. I'm actually losing my voice. Can you believe? It's probably from this week. It was intense. I've never lost my voice during a recording before, but this video that I prepared, wow, by the end, I was struggling. You know, you end up doing like 4 or 5 takes, and then you just say, okay, that's it. That's the best I can do. Even with water, voice was completely gone by the end. Did those mods myself. Thank you, Dylan. This is you in the chat. Yeah, it looks superb. Really does catch the light, and you get to see all the details. I think the modding community is quite a special one. It's nice when you get some hands-on time with pieces and you get to enjoy them. And from Houston, wearing your Maelstrom diver, like the Mido. Oh, God, there's just so many pieces on show. I struggle. I think this is the same Dylan who sent this in. He just picked up, there's also a few more pieces that he's going to be showing us. How gorgeous is this IWC? And in the background, looks like he's got, I'm saying an alto sax. This doesn't look like this looks like an alto. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But this is a gorgeous, and it is a Spitfire, right? I was just about to say, yeah, Dylan, it's great. Nice sax. Really enjoy it. Nice contrast between the elements. Got a panda dial, but then you have raised numerals. This really captures the details on the dial nicely. You get to see how everything sits and stands nice and clean and clear. Yeah, it looks gorgeous. And there's your little watchmaking bench. It's great. I can see you enjoying the modification. Spitfire double chrono. Oh, it looks superb. I think you've sent a few more in, so I'm going to have a look. Nice sax in the background there too. And Dylan, was this you? This is you as well. So Dylan tells me the story about how his dad and him were building a guitar. I don't know if I've saved all of those photos because it can get a bit extensive with the submissions that come in. But this is a Mossman from Kansas, and this was made by Mr. Mossman. If you can please clarify a bit more detail about these guitars were all handmade by him in Kansas. A pretty small company, and they're some of the best guitars out there. I mean, it looks gorgeous. This looks like a proper turtle shell scratch plate. Love the pearl on the inside. I mean, look at that inlay inside there. Oh, I would love to get myself a Martin D45 one day. That's one of my grail guitars for sure. But gorgeous looking IWC. I think you sent in a few more, your seagulls that you just picked up. Friend of your dad. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I personally don't know the company. It's one of those pretty small, I would imagine very popular. Oh, John Denver, fantastic. This, you know, again, I'm from the Southern Hemisphere. I don't know all of this stuff. It's great. I mean, anyone who's into guitars, you'll see it in the chat. Everyone from John Denver, Emmy Lou, they all play these guitars. Mossman as a name. This is beautiful. Carrying on with Dylan. He sent in a Seagull that he just picked up. And I mean, these watches are what, like $100? And the chronograph movement in these pieces, I mean, they are bulletproof. It's hilarious just how good they are. A 1963, I think they call it. Yeah, I mean, Seagull, pretty clean, pretty elegant. I don't know much about the brand at all, for sure. 250, okay, sorry, $100, 250. So Bado is saying, I'm envious of anyone with musical talent. It's a difficult thing to explain. I don't know if it's inherited, because my folks are not musical in the slightest. I mean, they just aren't. My grandparents were. I don't know how it skips a generation. I'm not the best person to ask. But and I think in some way, even if you just practice, you can get there with an instrument. but it's knowing tone, I guess. It's also your ear. There's all sorts of things. It's funny, right? It's funny how some can just do it and others can't. I can't put myself into that mindset. It's the most peculiar thing. I think people who are generally quite musical, they just don't understand what it means. It's like dyslexia in a way. You just don't understand how people can read stuff differently. Anyway, so thank you for all of these, Dylan. It's great seeing. And I think, geez, you sent in even more. So this is a bit. Oh, okay, here we go. So I did feature your guitar, Dylan. So he's wearing his SKX. And this is a guitar that he and his dad made. Now, he and his dad had a company, and the company's name, Bend Over. Get it? Got it? And so he and his dad were working on these guitars for a long time, and I think your dad passed while you were busy working with these. Sorry, let's get back in. This is I mean, I honestly, it's so commendable for someone to actually get in and build these things yourselves. Building guitars, acoustic guitars, it's a different ball game compared to electrics, because electrics, it's all just bolt on. It's just slab of wood, screw it in, done. Except when you're talking about semi-hollow bodies and stuff. But just building guitars in general, understanding the level of effort that goes into every single component. I can see that you've fused the top together, two halves. I don't know the wood that you use for the neck, but yeah, it's great. I mean, it really is commendable. I hope you get a lot of joy playing this piece, and over time it's going to age so well, and it looks terrific. So Dylan, thank you for sending this in. And I think another Doom shot, I mean, that is nuts. What a great looking piece. I can see Dylan is quite the hands-on guy, you know, modifying watches, building guitars, legend. Okay, I'm going to catch up with you in the chat. Sorry if I'm missing. Reed is in the chat. Reed, welcome to the show. There's a few more. Amar, welcome. So good having you all here. Everyone who's watching now, thank you so much for joining. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're getting to see a little bit more of a different scheme of things. So thank you for all of these, Dylan. We're going to move on next to Evan. And I don't know why this wasn't featured first. So I was so close to having this as the cover photo for the show. So close. This is a Grand Seiko, and it's called the Dawn of Mount Iwate, right? That is the name of the watch. I hope I didn't botch it. But these are rare. These are pretty much limited editions. It's a high beat GMT. So very much like the Peacock, just a different, more like a rustic dial layout. Oh, it's gorgeous. I love the way he caught this. And the funny thing is, in his email, he said, here is your cover photo for the show. Laugh out loud. And I thought to myself, you know, this is just perfect. I had it all lined up and prepared. But then I saw the 6239 and I thought, you know what? How often do we feature a 6239 for a show? So sadly, this was the top contender. This was so close. And we get right in and we get to see the finishing. I mean, he caught it in the lights just perfectly. You get to see every little grain. Grand Seiko and their dials, I mean, not many do it better than this brand. Just with regards to, what I find fascinating is that each piece in the Grand Seiko line, whether the Snowflake, what other makes, the GTR edition that we saw, that chronograph, the Peacock, their GMTs, some have radial dials, some have this fascinating brushing, others have use of guilloche in a sense. Yeah, nuts. And he also sent a movement shot, so we get a good understanding. I don't know how this rotor works in the light, but he's wearing a glove. You can see it's on a leather strap. I mean, Grand Seiko, it's a brand to itself. It does have its own unique stance. Speaking of which, outpunched by Paul Newman. Yeah, but I'm sorry. Yeah, that was it. It was like right on the cusp, and I thought, you know what? Let's just put the Paul Newman on the cover. I've never featured it on the show, and why not? Speaking of which, talking about Grand Seiko and other brands, I'm going to be doing a video comparing car brands with watches. I've decided it's going to be done a very methodical write-up about it. So recommend you look at, that'll be out in maybe 2 weeks' time. I've taken a much more methodical approach, you know, no preference to the brand and where it sits and what it is, and shouldn't take offense to what brand I'm pairing it with, the car brand, but there's just so much you can explore when we look at how these brands align themselves and their histories and their backgrounds. So I think you'll enjoy it. Like I've already made a list of the brands and just how they're going to work together. Yeah, what a gorgeous watch. Evan, thank you for sending this in. I don't know if you're in the chat, but beautiful piece. Very seldom we see this. Gotta love that dial. Next from Eric. And another ceramic bluesy. We had this in the beginning of the show. Oops, come back. But look at the way this piece catches the light. I mean, that Rolex in two-tone. That's all you say. Evan, you're here. Thank you so much for sending it in. It was so close to being the top. And Brick Lane, there's already people talking about watches and cars. Rolex, I don't pair Rolex with Mercedes. I'll say that, Brick Lane. But what did I pair it with? I can't even remember. Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good though. You will enjoy it. I'm definitely not saying that if you own the one watch, you should own that car brand. I don't think that's how it works. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So I really hope you do enjoy it. What's a good one? I paired Breguet with Mercedes-Benz. I'll say that much. Breguet with Mercedes-Benz. And just because of Carl Benz pretty much inventing the first car, you know, if it wasn't for Breguet, the watch and its development wouldn't necessarily be the way it is now. I think Merck and Breguet work quite well together, but there's just so much. Pagani, FB Jaune, yeah, that's pretty much where I went with that brand. There's yeah, you know, I don't know what I said Lange was. Anyway, beautiful shots. I love how this catches the light. We get to see the gold and how it plays on the dial and the case bracelets. Rolex knows how to handle two-tone. You also get to see the radial finish on the dial. And yeah, I mean, it's great. And Bodo saying Breguet Mercedes, you'd like to know more. That's the idea. I want to get more into the history of the brands and just where they sit. Yeah, so don't worry. It should be coming out one day. Richard Mille, Fiat Multipla. Yeah, I mean, if we talk about cars and brands, it'll just be nuts. So Eric, thank you for sending that in. I think this is a different Eric. But he sent in a Heuer Night Diver. I've never seen this watch glow before. It looks great. And 29 years old, I think he said this watch is at the moment. Looks cool. I mean, this was all the rave back in the day, you know? There's so many. Actually, let me pull up my notes and drop a car brand. See if I can find something good just to keep us rolling because there's so much. Okay. What's a goodie? What did I say? Okay, Ferrari. Any guesses for what I paired Ferrari with? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but that's about it. And see, Faunel asks, can you repeat how to send pics be featured? Yeah, absolutely. The description of this video, you can see it at the base there. My email is in the second line of the description. If you just scroll down a little bit, if you're watching this on a laptop or a PC. And yeah, submissions come in like 50 per day, so I have to really try and taper it in and keep track. We're still sitting on E, and we're like, what? How many hours in? 96 minutes in so far. It's just nuts. Okay, so this is a great piece. I must say, the idea of negative space and the use of negative lighting on a diver is something special. I like the idea that you can see it so easily, even though that not everything is loomed and that the batons and the plots are just black. And the lights, the actual luminescence behind it is what lets it stand out. Elegant piece. I feel like more dive watches should incorporate this into their aesthetics. Would be quite the nice combo. Great loom for 29 years, absolutely. 73 Math, I haven't seen you for a while. And Carlos, welcome. Great having you all here. All of you who've joined, again, not avoiding you. If you want to get my attention, tag me in the chat. Kukuru saying Ferrari equals Timex. No. And Hublot, no, absolutely not. Yeah, it might be a bit cliche, I think, if I do spoil it. But I've paired Ferrari with Patek Philippe. I don't know if that's fair or not, but yeah. It's very nice, though. I think you'll enjoy just the way I've rationalized all the brands with the cars. And Matrix saying, where could you send my picture in? My email address is in the description of this video. You should be able to grab it pretty easily. It should be the second line. Timex is Bugatti of brands. Okay, so Fazi sends in. Fazi should be in the chat. I think he's there. A Luminox with a Bark and Jack strap. And I think this piece has one of the most amazing dials. I don't know if it's a tritium dial or not, but this is real heavy duty stuff. I mean, it's a PVD case. Oh no, spoiled it. PVD case. We have numerals everywhere. It's so busy, but it looks like a real mil-spec watch, you know. Patek is Rolls-Royce. Yeah, now we're just going to start like cars. Oh God, I've made a mistake here. Proper chunker. It's a monster, right? Really is. And Fazi's there. Tunku's in the chat. Tritium. So it is in fact a tritium dial. Thought so. Yeah, I mean, it looks great. It really looks like a mil-spec piece. On the NATO, black on black, really nice and clean. Has that marathon effect to it, you know? Yeah, I opened a can. I sure did read Seiko, Subaru. Geez, I feel like the chat's just going to go ballistic now. Okay, Fauzi, thank you for sending this in. Got to carry on down here because we've got so many still. Founder Timeless Capital. Now, James, Founder Timeless Capital, he sent in a Paul Newman Daytona, and that was the cover watch for the show. Let me jump back to it because it deserves a bit of a limelight. There it is, 6239, the Paul Newman. Well, all hope I had to keep up with the chat is now lost because you guys are just going ballistic with cars and brands. It's going to be so funny. I know it's going to be very divided, and I think we all enjoy it for the most part, but I'm sure everyone will have their own preference and opinion. Steinhardt and Volvo. Okay, so yeah, James, Founder Times Capital, sent this in earlier, and it's a stunning piece. And then on top of it, he also sent in a 1016 from the 80s. I guess this was from the 80s, just by the styling of the case and the dial. Might be wrong. I would imagine like 81, 83 kind of period. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But what a clean looking watch this is. Again, one owner, box and papers. That's the rule. I mean, it's a great rule to have. No, his collection is sublime. Orange Hand, I agree. Welcome to the show, Orange Hand. Haven't seen you. It's great having you here. His collection is sublime. It's just above and beyond. And if you're in the chat, James, it's such a pleasure being able to feature your pieces. He did mention, I think, that he enjoys wearing vintage watches a lot recently. He has a small set at home, and he's just enjoying rocking these vintage pieces. He loves no-date subs. It's what he wears around the house. It's just so clean. I mean, look at the dial. Tritium is there, all nicely spaced. The case looks like it's been finished once, maybe polished. I could help you tighten up that end link, though. That's an easy fix. But it's just, you can see the acrylic's looking good. I mean, there's not even a scratch on the thing. I mean, look at the bezel. It's just, it's nuts. It's just, we get so envious, you know? Anyway, I think you're still in the chat. Founder Times Capital. Don't know if you're there, but yeah. Anyway, we're going to carry on and keep moving. 1016, it's a gem. Jean-Luca sends in 2 JLCs. And what a pairing we have here. Let's just leave them on the screen for a sec while I jump back to you in the chat. Lange equals Porsche. Oh my goodness, I've really started a war here. Geez, you see, that's now thinking about it. Should I even make a video of watches and car brands? Because you guys are going to hate me for it. Because I'm not going to be pairing your watches together with the cars. Don't worry, I will be very rational with my Tesla equals quartz. That's pretty good, James. I will be very rational with my pairing of the cars. I'm not just going to say X is equal to Y. I'm going to give some kind of reasoning behind it too. Okay. And Truth Fears says the only JLC I ever wear is a Reverso duophase. So this is a grand. Oh, what do they call this? It's called a Reverso Grand duophase. No, correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, talking about these two, Geophysic on the left, Grand Reverso on the right. The Geophysic is a watch that it's so peculiar. Looks just like your normal everyday watch. Looks like it has a quartz movement, but it's fully automatic and extremely accurate. Known as the true second. And then on the right, I mean, this is the Archie luxury watch. This is what he loves to wear. I'm pretty sure this is the same reference that he has. Date complication at the base, nice offsetting, got the power reserve at the top. Very Breguet-esque in the way that they set their hands offset on the dial, you know. Very clean. And you guys are still just going, X equals, yeah, you guys are now saying Rolex equals Rolaids, and MVNT is Hugo, JLC is Jaguar. Oh, geez, I don't know what I did. I'm so sorry. For those of you who want to have rational watch conversations in the chat, I think we've just lost all of it. Zin is VW, BS says. That's pretty good. I said, for VW, I said Tudor is VW. How's that? I don't know if that's is that effective or not, but I think Tudor as a brand has managed to put itself into the VW shoes of things. Anyway, going to be talking about watches and cars. It'll be nuts. Uber, Lamborghini. Oh, God. Okay, going to carry on. Thank you for these, Gianluca. Great seeing 2 GLCs on the show and them together. Next from Graham. Now, our man Graham sent in a 5508 last week when we last did the show. This was nearly the cover photo for the show, and he's just sent in another shot. He sent in a few, but I've saved this as the hero. I feel like this is a Theo and Harris strap on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this piece he bought in the 90s, and did he buy it in about 95, I think, because 5513s were too expensive. So he had to just settle for a 5508. And the irony is now it's like 3 times more valuable than a 5513, you know. So this watch has been reloomed. I'm sure it's been cleaned up. It's got a new bezel, but he just wears the snot out of it and just enjoys the piece, the scale, the size. I mean, what's not to love about just a simple everyday? Again, this is the second one we featured on the show. It doesn't have a ghosted bezel. It's got 37.5 mil case size. It's about 37 mils. So it's small, elegant, petite. Doesn't even look like a Submariner. And I think you'd actually have to look quite hard to realize that it is a Submariner at a glance, which is something special. Also, love the combination between the strap and the patina on the dial. Look at how puffy these loom plots are. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if when tritium ages, someone can correct me maybe, but when tritium ages, the loom plots sort of puff out. I don't know if that's a part of the effect. No idea. But this watch has replacement hands. It's not perfect, but it's an everyday wearer. Loves wearing it just because it's the business. Looks great. I really enjoy it. So thank you, Graham. Just featured this again from last week's show. Next from Hussein, a King Seiko high beat. Don't know much about these pieces, but I can honestly say I've never seen King Seiko mentioned on the dial like that before. So high beat seconds. You can maybe clarify what this watch is in the chat if you're there. Yes, it can puff up. Thank you, Evan. Jeez, I don't know. Half of the stuff I just pull out of thin air. It's ridiculous. There's still discussion about cars and everything else in here. It's just, I've really opened up a can of worms, as Reed said, I think. Taking another hit, and I'll be right with you. Kurt is saying, Zin equals Audi. I think you'll enjoy my Audi comparison. One brand that's quite dear to my heart. I think it sits quite nicely in line with Audi. Again, I think it's good when you can look at the history, the development of the brand, just what the brand has done for itself in the cars, in the automotive space. Also, same with the watches. So that's how I'm going to kind of pair it, technology with watchmaking, and seeing how that goes. So Hussein, thank you. I think you only sent this in. Nice contrast. I do enjoy seeing how the batons have black highlights inside them, so you can really tell the time very easy at a glance. I don't know much about these pieces at all. Me and Seiko's, it's like me and most references. I'm terrible, pretty useless at them. Try my best, but you learn something every day, you know. And great topic, great video from James. I think we're talking about the watches and car brands. It's been spoken about to death. That's one thing to highlight, is that watches and car brands, many just flippantly say, okay, this is the brand, that's the car, because this looks right and this looks correct. I really want to take a much more focused approach at pairing off cars with brands, because I was a car guy way before watches. You know, since I was barely able to walk, I was into cars. So I do have quite a good understanding of the history of automotive manufacturers, and thinking that might be a nice way to pair in with Swiss brands and everything else. It's just so difficult to really, I've listed like 15, maybe about 15 brands. I definitely don't want to go too far in, because there's just so many other names that I'm going to miss. I've really tried to highlight the pieces that most of us know pretty well, and focus mainly on European cars linked with European watches. I think that's fair. So this is from Henry, and he sends in a Habring 2. I don't know if they call it, I never get this right. Is it a squared or is it 2? Habring 2. What a beautiful looking watch. Notice how the dial has applied batons and numerals, but they look like they've been painted on. Very elegant. And look how the date window has been arranged. I much prefer this over a red triangle. It looks much more Austrian, much more deep into that German sort of approach, instead of the whole, the typical Swiss layout that we expect to see. Can you hear my voice going? The Zeitwerk date looking. Yeah, it looks great. My God, my voice is really going. I thrashed my voice this week, ladies and gentlemen. It's so bad. Really enjoy the date complication, like the placement. We never see these pieces, 2 harborings. Date's very easy to read. Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy, and another thing, I've said this a few times about dress watches. It's so nice seeing how the numerals have been integrated into the dial. For a dress watch, I like that visual complexity. I think it's important. Use that space. What's the point of having a 40 mil case that doesn't have, you know, it's just so much negative vacant space, where here we have a really nice understanding of just how you could place everything well. You got the sub, I feel like this is sub-seconds. I don't know why there's an 8 there. You might need to correct me. But it's so great seeing numerals being used on the outside instead of your standard date windows. Okay, moving on. Thank you for this, Henry. Okay, well, we've seen a couple of these already. And this is from James. I also mentioned that he's in Texas, which is cool. It's pronounced Habring. Thank you, Andreas. Okay, I want to catch up with all of you here. I've missed many. Drink some green tea, lemon and ginger. Well, I can't exactly get up and go and, you know, prepare it. I wish I've sound dead in the room so I can do the recording, believe it or not. So the door is pretty much firmly closed. So we're talking about the Omega Seamaster 300 again, except this one is the reissue, very much like mine. And he bought it after watching the show. He said, I couldn't help it. Needed to get one of these. And he went and picked it up this week. And we actually were comparing reference numbers. Oh, Orange Hand talking about the power reserve. Absolutely. That's probably it, eh? So this is an 8-day power reserve. I'm a moron. You know, I've been doing this now for what, 110 minutes? You can imagine I'm going to be making some mistakes. I love this. I think it's just such a classically inspired piece. It looks superb. So James said that he went and picked it up this week. And we actually compared our reference numbers at the backs of our case backs. If anyone's in the chat and you want to know the reference in the back of mine, let's see, of 3557, mine is 2568. And James's piece is basically 200 less. His was about 23. It's crazy, right? 200 serials apart. So yeah, they're pretty rare, these pieces. Nice to see them in the open. I'm glad to see that my quote-unquote influence helped push someone to get one. I feel like these are going to be sought after one day. Not that I care. I mean, I don't intend to sell mine at all. But since they are pretty rare and limited, if you run back a little bit earlier into the stream, we spoke about the original CK2913 briefly. Yeah, so it's a 1/8 second. Okay, Lena, thank you. So I was wrong. It's not a power reserve. It's a 1/8 second. Yeah, I'm useless. I'm really, when it comes to details, sometimes I miss a lot. At least you'll sound like Charlotte Church. It's talking about green tea and alcohol and everything. Yeah, you know, that's how I roll. Okay, and Jimmy Split. Oh my goodness, what a pleasure. Jimmy, thank you for joining. So great having you here. For those of you who are on, all of you, click on Jimmy Split's name, go to his channel and follow his stuff, because he has a superb collection. Another Southerner, another Aussie. He has such a nice set. I really tried to bring attention to your channel, I would say about a year ago, Jimmy. And the watches that you have, I mean, it's pretty eye-opening. So everyone in the chat, Jimmy Split 77, check out his channel, because the watches that he has, so good having you here. Thank you for joining. Okay, so we've spoken about the Seamaster enough. Now, from Jimmy, and he falls under the name, I think he wanted to tell me this. His Instagram handle, I don't know if I'm going to see if I can get this in. Flieger777, Flieger B777. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll be able to see a lot of the pieces that he has, but he is obviously a 777 pilot, and he has a nice selection of pieces. First off, we have a GMT. I don't know, he probably wears his watch quite loose. You can see it's flaring up, but it's so nice seeing the watch in its habitat, you know, in an environment. The Pepsi GMT is growing on me, you know. Okay, just catching up. Yeah, Jimmy, it's a pleasure. It's such a pleasure. So anyone else? I'm sorry if I'm trying to catch up with the chat while it's rolling. I'm glad that the car talk has stopped for a while. So yeah, so the Pepsi GMT is growing on me, must say, especially the 5-digit references. I think they are just very impressive. I don't know if this is a Mark 1 or Mark 2. This looks very clean. I can see the blue and the red, so I feel like this is a second gen. We don't have the purple and pink dilemma that we normally get. Maybe it's just the lighting. But again, we see it in use, and he sent in a few more. Would you believe, if Curtis is still in the chat, Curtis, we get another Glycine M from another Airman. This is called the Airman 9, and it's a chronograph. Again, I look forward to sharing my thoughts on this piece, or the Glycine Airman in general, next week. But it's so nice seeing it in a cockpit actually being used. Pilot watches in a space, and he's got a few more great pieces. So also nice seeing the blue and the accents. Look, I didn't know they actually screw the lugs. That is so good. More brands should actually focus in on screwed in lugs instead of just standard spring bars. I think spring bars are very temperamental. I mean, the watch can work perfectly, but the spring bar is the failure point, you know. And founders saying prefer my blue face and white gold, and that's the blue face Pepsi. Yeah, I must say it's one of the prettiest Pepsis they've made. I don't personally enjoy this new reissue of theirs. I prefer the Batgirl, Batman, whatever, on the Jubilee. I find this a bit too much. The original 5 digits I really enjoy, but the blue face Pepsi, and it was one of the last generations with the white gold. I think they brought that out a couple of years back. It is gorgeous. I think that combination is just the business. So thank you for this, Jimmy. And next, I mean, talk about a pilot watch. JLC Master World Geographic. I mean, for the money you're spending on these brands, JLC is one of those pieces that really does offer you everything and more for what you're getting. And it's so good that you're actually listening to me. It's not everyone's addressing Jimmy. Do you still have the 5513? That's great. It's great. Unfortunately, they discontinued the Emin. And this is Jimmy in the chat. Welcome, Jimmy. I'm so glad you've joined. Thank you for being a part of the show. Yeah, but just talking about this JLC, again, dress watch aesthetic that uses its space on its dial. So not only do we have a world time complication, but we also have dual time zone. We've got a date complication. We've got a power reserve. There's just so much. It's so elegant, exciting. JLC is a real sweet spot brand, and that's why it's spoken about so much. I really look forward to talking about watches and brands and prices and just where they all sit, because there's a lot to talk about in that sweet spot. And world timers, yeah, as Bud Owen says, love them. I mean, they are terrific pieces. I think there's another world time on the show. I don't remember. Another one from Jimmy. I mean, this is the business. So now we've got sitting at the back. Oops. Come on, Magic Trackpad, work with me. The first thing I notice when I see this watch, integrated end link with the leather, how much more intact does that look? I mean, Jimmy has good taste, ladies and gentlemen. He understands how to make a watch look more integral. That whole idea of putting that, I don't know if this is an aftermarket that comes with the strap or if you had to actually cut it to fit. It looks like you did a bit of work yourself. I don't know. It just looks so nice seeing it paired together, Oh, geez. I'm really losing my voice. It's insane. Isn't whiskey supposed to be good for your voice? Whiskey and lemon. I don't know. I'm just going to go whiskey all the way. Maybe it's the monkey shoulder. I'm not used to monkey shoulder, and that's maybe that's how it's affecting me. Who knows? Everest leather band. Yeah, I think it looks terrific. Really, and it's so nice seeing that Everest actually goes to the length to actually say, no, we're going to make it integrated. Whiskey is good for everything. It's nice that they can go to the length to say, okay, we're going to integrate this properly and make it look clean. It looks so good. I wish more brands would be more effective. It'd be so nice to see end links actually standard, where we could just buy them online to fit our straps with them. Okay, going to move on. Thank you for all of these, Jimmy. It was so good seeing them. Next from Henry. I think this is the same Henry who sent in the Hebring, the Herbring. I'm botching the name left, right, and center. But we have a VC overseas. It's just great. I don't know how many people don't know whether or not you like this watch. I know it's a very divisive piece, but must say the overseas, the fact that it now rubs shoulders with the Nautilus, the Royal Oak, we've already seen on the show actually. It's very commendable. And I think this third generation, they really hit the ball out of the park. And what I love about this piece, we zoom right in, it's been worn. Look at that. You can see the scratches, the micro scratches all along the bezel. This piece has actually been worn and enjoyed. Throw this on a rubber strap, leather strap. You can wear it more casually. It's great. I always like making the comparison between this watch and other brands, that you can, in fact, make a successful piece in the modern era. But there's talk about too big. Truth is, I think that would also be a problem for me. Since it is an integrated case and bracelet, it probably wears, it's a 41 mil, right? Or 40. It probably wears like a 42. But dial and placement is just great. And Curtis says, still here, read my email on 10 iconic watches of the 20th century. I'll have a good look, Curtis. I'm sorry. Again, as it is, I'm so overworked with regards to managing all the emails that come in, as well as trying to run the show. And I seriously need to hire a team at this point. It's getting to a stage where I'd love to have a few teammates to help with, the videography or the recording or the preparing and all of that. And Clive, welcome to the show, Clive. Great to have you here, Watch Wrangler. So the overseas is great. I don't know if this is a black dial or a blue dial, but we've spoken about it enough. It's just so nice and clean. So thank you, Henry. Next, we jump to Juan. I don't know if Juan is in the chat. And I don't know what this car is. Please, someone tell me what this. Oh, come back. What is this car? If anyone knows the dashboard, let me know. But Juan has a crazy collection. Not only does he have modern stuff, but he likes calling himself Hamilton Juan. I think he is in the chat. I'm pretty sure he's here. Seen him recently. And I think Jane, founder says, going to have to up your whiskey game. I do. I need to get some single malts, some Glenmorangies and Glenfiddich and everything else. I need to get back in Glenmoray. I need to get some proper. I definitely want to try some Japanese whiskey as well. I hear it's the best. Okay, now these watches are amazing. I hope you're going to enjoy these. If Hamilton Juan is in the chat, he can tell us more details. But not only does he collect modern Rolex and Vacheron overseas and everything else, it's a Maserati. Thank you. Juan, that must be you there. Thank you so much. So this is probably a Maserati Quattroporte or a GT. I don't know my modern cars, I should say. I kind of fallen out of car brands over the years. As products go, you sort of lose track with a lot of things. I don't even know what generation certain pieces are. So this is a Hamilton Oval from between 1928 and 1930. It's definitely not a Patek Ellipse, Joe. But so not only does he, my God, my voice is really bad. Not only does he have modern watches, he loves his vintage Hamiltons in particular. And just look at it. Hamilton in their heyday, these are all about 14 carats. I think he did specify about 14 carat rose gold. What am I saying? White gold, 14 carat white gold. And we're going to see a few of these, not only an oval, but we're going to see some Pacers, some Richemont, some Tonneaus. So get a good look, because, this is such a time capsule when you get to see everything spaced out. And you just enjoy how the oval form is translated through to the dial, where we get to see the Hamilton name highlighted there, the sub-dial. Everything is in an oval format. The text and everything, great. Nice leather strap. I think he sent in another one. Here's the loom shot. I can imagine the dial is faded. This might be replacement hands. Hans asking me, am I still loving my new purchase? Absolutely. The Seamaster doesn't come off. It's become an everyday and everything watch for me. I think that's the best kind. You can just throw it on, and that's all I need. Don't know if that's going to change over time. I can't wait to see this watch in 20 years and see how it fares. But these coaxials, ladies and gentlemen, these coaxials are no joke. It's running. I've been wearing it solidly for 2 months, and it's running +2 seconds. I cannot believe it. I take this bike riding, running, everything. We're allowed out in the UK, so I do tend to exercise and stuff. And it just keeps going. It gains some time, and then it loses time. It sits right in that sweet spot between +2 and 0. Nuts. So beautiful watch from Juan. And he sent a few more 1920s, 1930s Hamilton. These are real treats to look at. Look at this thing. Oh my goodness. So Hamilton Pacer from 1958, Hamilton Electric. And he linked me a link to a platform that basically highlights what the electric means. And it's insane just how, so this watch uses a battery, if I'm not wrong, but that's it. The battery is there, but the mechanics are still there to regulate. The battery acts almost like a mainspring. I just think that the styling is so peculiar. You've got the salmon dial, you've got this asymmetrical form to the case, and I think he sent in a few more in the green, the garden in the background. He's got so many of these Hamilton pieces. It's just incredible. So Badone's saying, when your new watch becomes your everyday watch, you've made the right choice. I think that's the case. I don't know. It might just be because it's my only great watch, and that's why I'm enjoying it so much. Maybe that's the case. But just the aesthetics, it never bores me. It's something I look down to and just, geez, the screen is bright. I don't know if it's the same for you, but I am losing my eyesight here. Moving to the next. Oh my goodness. So there we go. We've got, this looks like almost like a Cartier tank cintre in a way, right? Look at those numerals on the dial. I love it. I mean, these vintage Hamiltons, we never get to see these. Again, all 14 karat. This is a 1937 Hamilton Richmond, or Richmond. I don't know what you would say. Richmond. Let's say Richmond, and keep it in the American slang there. Maybe I need some monkey shoulder, but it's great. So yeah, I hope I'm keeping up with all of you in the chat. Sometimes the chat just stops abruptly, and I'm thinking, okay, my laptop lost pace. I mean, look at that. It's a real capsule of its time. And there's something about these vintage pieces. I'm definitely getting attracted to Cartier, especially. You know. So anyway, I'm going to carry on. Thank you for this, Juan. And next is a tonneau, and I think this is quite the gem. We've got a guitar in the background, and I cannot for the life of me. Please, can you elaborate on what this is, Juan? Love to know. Is that an amplifier? That's a suitcase back there. But another 14 karat white gold Hamilton. Look how they did the engraving. I mean, they actually engraved the case, all hand done. Where do we get to see these often enough? It looks superb. I think you've chosen a great selection of pieces, you know. Same for me with Cartiers. Yeah, Philly, I think it's something you grow into, you know. It's, you know, this hobby is up and down. You never really know what you want until you try it and you get there. So yeah, I'm dead keen to get myself a Cartier one day. Some kind of vintage piece. I must say, I held a little white gold Cartier once from like the 20s. Oh my goodness, it was incredible. It's so heavy. you don't believe it, but it's a tiny little thing, and it's a little lead weight in your hand. Beautiful. Another tonneau, and this is also from Juan. He sent in a lot. I'm going to carry on through. So this was called, according to Juan, American Patek Philippe. Is that what the collectors have called this? This is one of the. This kind of reminds you of the gondolo in a way. No. Okay, I'm going to catch up with you in the chats if I've missed anyone else. Talking about wife evicting you. I don't know what that's got to do with. Anyway, I'm going to carry on. Cartier must be in the air. I've been getting interested too. It must be. I mean, Cartier, you know, timeless brands when it comes to the age, and, you know, our tastes change over time as it is. But you can never go wrong with a timeless brand. But yeah, these Hamiltons are superb. It's so nice seeing just such a broad selection in one category. And here's the engraving. So more engraving here. And this is, he said, Hamilton tonneau engraved 1928. So yeah, I tried to like give a little caption on the side. Yeah, engraved 1928. I mean, all of that hand done, 14 karat gold, 1928, and this watch is still rolling. I mean, there are collectors out there who just, you know, buy Elgins or Hamiltons, and that's it. And they write books about the brand. Han's asking, do I sleep with the watch? Yeah, I do. This is the only watch I've actually been able to sleep with before. How strange is that? I don't know if that's if that's to do with the bracelet. Bracelet is crazy comfortable. I don't know. I don't know how best to describe it to everyone. But I think in the next 6 months, I will do a 6-month review and a bit more of a rounded discussion about the history of the design and the watch itself. I definitely want to learn a bit more about the Seamaster, the original Seamaster 300. So Clive's saying you can't tell them Patek Philippe's. I can tell them apart. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can tell these apart pretty well. They look great. Yeah, nice. So Juan, thank you for sending these in. And he also sends in an overseas on a rubber strap. It's crazy how we get repeats of the same watch in one show, right? 2 Vulcans, two overseas is nice. And the next watch is coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. We're going to be looking at our first Langes of the show, and you do not want to miss these. This is from Julian. We'll be seeing it in a second. So Juan, thank you for sending these in. It's so nice seeing the pieces. So he says they called Hamiltons of the era Patek because it was so good. And that's true. I mean, Hamilton as a watchmaker in that time, up until the 50s and the 60s, they were doing some incredible things, supplying movements to the Ministry of Defense, also just making their own in-house movements, their own calibers for First World War, Second World War. It's nuts, right? Okay. Going to carry on here, and we're going to jump to our first Langes of the show. Are we ready? Are you prepared? Here we go. So Julian said last week to me, oh mouse, work with me here, sweetheart. Julian said to me last week, noticed that you didn't have any Langes on the show, and I thought I would just contribute. Oy. So we have a Lange 1 on the right, and this looks like a Saxonia datum on the left. but oh my goodness, what a combination. They're just beautiful. You know, when you can show these watches to non-watch people, and then they can say, okay, these are very nice. They look superb. I think that's when you've hit the sweet spot. People who don't appreciate watches can see this and go, wow, okay, they're quite spectacular. And they don't know a thing about them, you know? What a gorgeous shot. Julian, thank you for sending these in. Honestly, between these two, this little datum, what is it? It's a datum. It's a Saxonia datum, something on the lines there, big date. This to me is just gorgeous. Even though I really don't like date complications on watches, that is just tuxedo black. Just so, I mean, look at that placement there. Large window, subdial, clean. But then also, you never see this. This looks to be a yellow gold. I don't know if it's rose or yellow, but with this slate gray dial, when do we ever see this layout? I can honestly say I've never seen this before. But as a pairing, just as you said, great pair, just missed it, from Russell. It is such a nice pairing. Different metals, different dials, different finishes, different cases. Actually, everything about the watch. The only thing that they really share that's the same is a leather strap, really. The case proportions look different completely. You can see that the Saxonia line has a much thinner lug width there, or lug, what would you say? The actual profile of the lug is thinner compared to the Lange 1, which is a bit fatter. And this is not the only set of Langes that we will be seeing. And Fibonacci, absolutely, Les. Video that I made about Lange 1 and just how everything fits in. I think I've told you the story before, but a professor in the United States actually reached out to me wanting to use my picture of the golden ratio on the Lange 1 in his presentation, which is funny. I just find it, you meet and reach the most amazing people doing this. So yeah, it's gorgeous. What do I think of Craig? This is from Triforce. What do I think of Craig Ship's Grand Seiko 002? Let me just look it up quickly. I'll just look it up on the laptop. 002. Is that, it's a 9F, right? It's a 9F quartz. Did he just pick this watch up? I think there was talk about this watch a while back. It's a spring drive. I need to look at this in more detail, but it is a gorgeous looking watch. I have seen this before. It actually caught my attention when it was unveiled last year or whatever else. I mean, when you look at this in its entirety, again, I can't pull it up on the screen very easily. Oops. Please bring this question up next week, Triforce, and we can discuss it in more detail. It looks superb. I think what it does so well is it not only looks like a Grand Seiko with its beautiful textured dial, but it also is elegant enough to position itself. It has the cushion style case. It does communicate its brand. I think that's very important. When a design can communicate its brand very well, that watch definitely does, for sure. Oh, and Feli's dad, my feelings on the Odysseus. I'm actually going to be making a recording about that watch this week, and this new white gold that they brought out with the rubber strap. I've got a few things to address. Just in a short note, I don't think of all the brands out there, yes, of course, he sent us some movements, so let's enjoy those. Of all the brands out there, I don't think Lange needs to make a sports watch at all. It just doesn't speak to me. I don't mind Patek with the Nautilus, that's fine, and the Aquanaut, okay. Vacheron overseas, AP Royal Oak, okay, but Lange really didn't need to go down the route of a sports watch at all. I think what they do here, when I close my eyes, that's the thing. When you think about a brand, you close your eyes, you think of a brand, this is what I see. Bang, finished, over, done. I don't see a sports watch in that mix. This classical, this classism approach of theirs, this Baroque sort of styling that they've adopted, this just pure, I mean, this is German to the fullest extent, and that's what makes it so beautifully successful. I just don't see it with the Odysseus. I find it to be a clash of sports, dress. I can't. And the saddest thing is, there's another point that I'll be bringing up in the recording. It's not a watch that's ever brought me back to look at them again. When I think Lange, I see these watches, I can close this screen off, and tomorrow I'll come back and look at them and be refreshed looking at them again. There's always some element about it that speaks to me more. Like, just all of a sudden, I look at the Lange 1 and I see the printing on the dial and the white, how it contrasts with the gray. And then I jump across here and I see just how wonderfully done the line weight is with everything on this dial. Not only is the date large and easy to read, but you have these gorgeous minute marks that run around. It's so clear and concise. Every detail, the made in Germany is well set. Small little things that speaks to you about the watch. I can't say the Odysseus has done the same. It's never really hit me, you know, yet. I don't know. Can talk about it in more detail. But was Patek not there once as well? Flea's dad, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. The Nautilus came out, and then people were also it turned their noses up. And because of the hype factor, now they're everywhere, and so it goes. I don't know. I just didn't, of all the brands, I didn't think Lange needed to do the work. They didn't need to make a sports watch. I mean, these pieces are just timeless. They look terrific. Yeah, so here's another shot. You can see this watch has been worn. It's got scratches everywhere, and that's the way a watch should be used. Lange one thing about the plating on these pieces, they really go overboard with their bridges. They lock everything behind a door, not to show you. But of course, the engraved balance, beautiful. And then we also have, what else? There's a few more. Oh, yes. So of course, this is also an automatic. I know what this watch is. I've just woken up to it. This piece is called a Saxomatic, I think. Saxomatic Datum or something like that. This is just, it's one of the winners of the show for me, for sure. I mean, yeah. What a good looking piece, right? So good. Just, I enjoy these pieces so much. More watches equal more money. Yeah, for sure. And some saying that they like the Odysseus. Absolutely. I'm definitely not going to say that it's a bad watch for the brand or anything like that. It's each to everyone's preference. There's some watches that I really don't like. It's just my honest opinion is when I think about the brand, I don't think Odysseus at all. It's not a watch that I've ever gone back to and said, there's something about this that really speaks to me more and all of this. But these pieces though, yeah, I mean, every day of the week, every time I look at the 1815 chronograph, I'm in. That's just me. I love it. There's something about it that always just speaks to me about something. The datograph, same. And a beautiful photo, of course. I didn't even thank Julian for just the gorgeous shots. I mean, it is just, I love it when we get to see every little detail, like the brushing on the case, all the polishing marks, the engraving. I mean, there we go. We can enjoy some engraving, some hand engraving right there. Clive, that's fantastic. Thank you. Submariner, John asks, what about the Submariner? It'd be nice to talk. If you like monkey shoulder, then you must try the Nika whiskey from Barrel. Needs a bit of water as it gets bottled at 50%. Okay, well, I do like re-watching the stream, so I will be sure to mention or mark that down and remind myself. 50%. Oh my goodness. I must say, monkey shoulder, it has quite a kick to it. It does hit you. So Julian, thank you for sending that in. Next, we have from Cade, and this is a Swiss Army Victorinox. Now, what's the story behind this piece? Well, he got it for his 18th birthday in 1992. So I would have been -1 back then, and he's worn this all his life. I think his dad gave it to him as his first watch. And I find that so endearing for someone to enjoy a watch like this all his life, still wearing it today. You can see the tritium has faded completely. But these Victorinox watches are quite, I mean, just the case design alone, very unique to the brand. I don't know if you know this, but the styling, you see this with all of the Victorinox style pieces. Do they even call them Victorinox? I don't know. That's what I always think when I see the branding. But as a Swiss Army watch, I would imagine that these were issued back in the day, and yeah, it's great. So I'm catching up with all of you here in the chat. There's just so many, and found us saying very special. It is. I think there's something so endearing about someone who can just enjoy the one watch they've always had. And I mean, this is a birthday gift from his dad. So I mean, why would you ever sell something like this, you know? That's the special thing about watches. I continually I go back to it and say, a watch is a product that is built to last. And there's so few products nowadays that can say the same thing about themselves. That's why I love them so much. Speaking about design and what they mean to us, they're so personal as items because you wear them all the time. They're built like tanks, and they're built to work, and they have terrific aesthetics. I mean, that's all you need in life, you know? That's what makes them so great. So this is also from Cade, and next to his Swiss Army, this is a Tag Heuer Professional 2004 that his wife bought him, I think for an anniversary, I can't remember. But why would you get rid of this watch as well? Another gift from wife, gift from father. It's the way to do it. It's the way to roll. Keepsake, as Hans says, absolutely. That's great. So thank you for sending these in, Kate. We're actually doing quite well with, that's amazing. We're doing quite well with time. We might be able to finish at the 3-hour mark for a change. I think I'm going to limit the, whoa, come back. I think I'm going to limit the submissions in future to like 120, 130. And so it goes. So this is from Lane. It's a Seiko 6139 helmet, 1977. And I think he sent in another piece that we'll be looking at just now. Me and my Seiko references, I'm as bad with Daytona references and everything else, you know. Clive, one, yeah, I'm sorry, Clive. I must say, after the last stream that we had, it was like 3 hours, 45 minutes. Those last 45 minutes, I was poked. Like I could barely keep my eyes open. So, and that definitely wasn't the reason why I took a week off the following week. But, you know, I have to pace myself, and, you know, I'm getting older. Got to try and manage time better. It's quite ironic, you know, managing time, and that's what we're talking about right now, watches. So, Seiko 6139 reference, automatic chronograph with a day-date complication. Seikos love their day-dates. Eh? That's like the real key to the brand. That's what they do. Great use of contrast, line weights on the dial. There's going to be a few Seikos mentioned in the video on Wednesday. If those of you follow me on Instagram, highly recommend my user, I think my user tag or whatever is, if you just go on Instagram, IDguy, it should be there. I do sort of allude to what the video is going to be on Wednesday. I'm sure some of you have already guessed, but it took 3 hours to record. I lost my voice. So we're going to carry on. Thank you for this, Lane. I think you sent in another piece that we'll be seeing. Martin, Philly's dad. Now this is Philly the dog, his boxer, just having a good sit. And Seiko King Turtle. I don't know if I put the reference in. I didn't. But again, inspired by the 6105. Love that hand grenade dial. It's a gem. As far as Seiko divers go, I think this one is pretty special. It's like a fat stopwatch with lugs, as Bowser says. Welcome to the show. It's not a bullhead. It's just your standard watch, and it has the same 70s era, you know, Mark II Speedmaster style case. Yeah, they really, what they were doing with watches back in the day, it was all just sort of throwing it at the dartboard and hoping that something would stick, you know. Too big and recessed crown are a no-no, Truth Fear says. Put an Aquanaut strap on the Turtle. That would look good, right, Bowser? Very good point. Something about the Seiko straps, it's never appealed to me. This whole crinkling effect. I mean, it's a real diver strap, but I don't know. It just feels too 80s for me, personally. I think it needs to be a little bit more modern. I mean, the original, the 6105, the way those straps were arranged with those knurlings around it looks so nice and clean. Anyway, thank you for this, Martin. I think you sent in a bit more. Look at this piece. This really caught my attention when I got sent in. Okay, here we go. This is the name. It's an Orient multi-year calendar. Oh my goodness, that reference. FEU 07005BX. I mean, if that's going to get you laid, I think that'll do it, you know. So Orient multi-year calendar. Talk about complexity on a dial, you know. You wear it on a NATO normally. Okay. And you're talking about this watch or the Seiko? I don't know. But I mean, this looks like a Mayan calendar. This doesn't just look like I mean, I don't even know, where would you even start with this watch? Really, where would you start? I sort of can see that it lines up, so each day of the week lines up with the corresponding month. I mean, that's a crazy complication, you know? Some info on that dial. Yeah, right. The proper instrument cluster. Is it the most legible thing in the world? They put time telling aside for the sake of the complication, but I mean, you could put Patek on this dial and it would be the most hot watch ever, you know, which I find quite entertaining. The fact that this watch offers so much. I mean, it looks like you've got a kilometer scale of it. Does this bezel, in fact, calculate? This looks like a pilot watch and everything in between, but the fact that it sacrifices all those plots for time, you know, for this complication, something else. Fascinating complication. I've never seen this before. So every day of the week corresponds with the numerals, and it corresponds with the actual date, January, May. It's incredible. That is quite something. I have zero idea of how it would work, but gonna carry on rolling. So Martin, thank you for sending these in. Been so good. And Matthew now sends in. We've got a Cellini. I think he sent this to me. I think he's based up north in the UK. I recognize this little divide in the road. Gorgeous day. We had an amazing week. I think 2 weeks ago. The weather was just phenomenal. I think we had some north winds up from Africa, and the weather was incredible. And he took this for a stroll. Rolex Cellinis need a bit more attention, I think. So this is called a Cellini Danos, Danos. Never heard of it before, but stunning piece. And I think the scale and everything is superb. Gold on gold looks great. Even has lume on the dial. It's got a proper rail track around it. Yeah, the Cellini as a brand needs more attention in the family. And it does have an oval effect, as Baron says. It does look like it's a bit elongated. I don't think he sent me any more of these, but it looks great. Really does look nice. I need to catch up to you in the chat. Rich Buddy says, nice Cellini. Yeah, it's awesome. And there was talk about a style strap for a Grand Seiko from Bowser. I mean, that's something. A brand should focus on that in more detail. I think, but then Zane says that the Patek fans would be very angry. Aftermarket Patek straps would sell like hotcakes, for sure. And Carlos, thank you for joining. I don't think I had any of your watches on the show, but I'd love featuring, I think you sent in a Doxa the other week. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for the super chat, Carlos. It's a pleasure. They see me squatter. Berza, you have the best comments, I tell you. So yeah, I love the rounded form. It looks great. Really terrific watch. And next from Matthew, he also sends in, and I'm going to butcher this completely. Emile, here we go. Emile Chaurier, Ice Cliff. I've never heard of this brand before, but it looks like it has, we were just talking about Victorinox and the Swiss Army. It looks like that same kind of form factor to the case. It's got integrated crown guards. It's got a bit of classical styling to it. If someone can please tell me about this brand, that would be great, because I have never heard of this before in my life. I don't know how popular these are. I don't know if it sounds like it's quite an old brand that's been around for a long time, like many others. They just haven't seen the limelight over the years. Nice and clean. We have lume. I do enjoy a brand where they focus on loomed, not only loomed batons, but also loomed Roman numerals. Looks great. Tuning fork hands as well. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the highlights. Also enjoy the kind of 70s era, all sorts of peculiar quirks to this piece. And I in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this watch almost wants to have a Aquanaut styling to it with the crown guard the way it is. You kind of think it's going to have this Aquanaut or Nautilus effect shoulder in the end. And I mean, it has a flat bezel. It has octagonal sides. Looks more like a 12-sided edge. And look how they've done the dial. There's just, once you get into this hobby, it just gets more and more deep, and you just never know when to stop, Looks like a Bulgari Octafinissimo, absolutely. Nuts, right? Anything matte gets me, dear Artifact. The fact that it doesn't play on light. I must say, matte dials really have, I've always enjoyed gloss dials, but matte dials too, they're just, the way they play in the light, so special, so legible. Now, thank you for those, from Matthew. We have Michael now with I'm going to get this reference, SLA019. This feels like a Marine Master, but it's a Prospex, and it's a this, that, and another thing. I just don't know. Seiko references and me, I'm useless. But this as a Hulk styling, Hulk design, we look at the green on green, a much darker use of the emerald, I think it looks superb. Triforce asking, what do you think of Carlos trading his Explorer in exchange for someone going into indentured servitude? May it actually happen. I don't know how to best answer that, Triforce. Thank you for the question. It's funny. But please ask me that question again about Craig Shipp's Grand Seiko. I'd love to talk about it more. Very cool watch. I think it looks stunning. So another chunky Seiko, as mentioned. The Marine Master 300 is the best Seiko diver, preferred over the Grand Seiko. And you know what it is that makes this watch so effective? Maybe the one element that divides opinion is the chunkiness, the actual thickness of the watch. I can imagine, gangrene green. I can imagine that the thickness is probably quite a dividing point. But what makes this watch so good visually when you see it is that balance. I think it is the use of the space on the dial, the the idea that all of these plots are just so well placed together. Not only do you have all the plots easily there and easy to see, Minitrack, you have a fully graduated bezel, and this looks like it's playing more on the emerald green color scheme, color spectrum, instead of the bright green that we see from, first thing that comes to mind is the Hulk Submariner, which is a watch that is famous in my camp for being one that I really don't appreciate the green too much. But yeah, Marine Master's definitely one of the best in the line. I think it's not only a great tribute to, the original what am I saying now? The original Turtles, but also is able to modernize itself with the way they've done the polishing on the case. It looks much more modern, but intact, simple. So as Ron said earlier, does definitely sit well. What does it measure? I would imagine this watch is probably about 44 mils in size and maybe about 15 mils tall. Don't know. But yeah, really clean. So thank you for this, Michael. I think he sent in another. I don't know if this is the same Michael. You can judge by his wrist. No, it's a different Michael. So this Michael sends in Glasuta Original, always botch these names, Senator Observer. I think this is the only GO we're going to be seeing on the show, but gorgeous. Tao, welcome. Thank you for joining. There's a couple of you joining already. Am I right in saying that it's 44? Wow, that's a lucky guess. This is a stunning looking piece. I think it reminds me of a marine chronometer, kind of like a Portuguesa, great balance on the dial, use of size and space, blued hands. I mean, terrific. The way that the GO does their date windows, so nice and clean. There are a few who are diehards of this brand, and they enjoy the boldness that this brand goes with the way they approach their designs. So we've got a power reserve on the right, we've got a sub-seconds on the left. This looks very much like it's inspired from, I would imagine, the Senator Observer. Maybe it's from the 40s, possibly, don't know. But as Blue Shirt says, no, as Russell says, and Russell, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining. Lovely hands. They do look superb. They really do, and they play with the light so well. There was a question asked of me, and look at the dial, the glitter effect that the dial has. There was a question asked of me about, do I prefer blue painted hands, or heat blued hands? And my argument was, with painted blue hands, yes, you get to see a nice gloss finish, but you don't get to see the polish playing in the light. And when it comes to heat blued hands, you get to see such a nice effect in the light. And I don't know why more brands don't bring back these gorgeous scripts from back in the day. Even on a modern watch, vintage script looks so good. Okay, carrying on. I think this is also from Michael. The same Michael, yes. He's sitting in a GTI, as we can tell. Superb car. It's a great car. And it's a Yacht-Master 40. And there's a few of them, I think. I think in the next few watches that we're going to have a look at, we'll be seeing some Yacht-Masters. Really underrated watch in the Rolex family. And I want to catch up with all of you here. I've missed so many of you. Emily, welcome to the show. It's great. It's so nice that I reach all regions, and thank you all for joining. I know many of you in other parts of the world definitely can't keep up with the show because of early hours in the morning, and I try to balance it, the time zones and everything else. Another Rolex. Yeah, it's funny how the community in general, it's a 50-50 split, I would say. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think, talking about this Yacht-Master in particular, rhodium dial, platinum bezel, it's so underrated. And also in the Yacht-Master line, it's almost like they go the extra step with the way they approach their detailing, highlighting, blue accents on the dial, the seconds hand. The polishing is great. The case is not a super fat, super case. It's tapered in, polished and balanced in places. It's a dressed up Submariner. And also the bezel with the raised accents. We get to really see those elements raised on the top. It looks great. I really enjoy it. And there's a few more that he sent in, I think. We've got a loom shot. This is not this. I think this is a different Michael. I don't know. How is it possible that we have two Michaels that send in both? They both send in a Yacht-Master. I can't believe that. These are definitely two different Michaels, no? I can tell by the arm hair. That's spooky. That is spooky. Anyway, Chi-Town, yeah, Yacht-Master is a nice compromise between Submariner and a Datejust. Absolutely. I say absolutely a lot. Slap myself, tell myself not to do it. Definitely rides that line well. It's elegant, a bit more elegant, something that can be worn with a suit with confidence, and it's not as recognizable as a Submariner, you know? That's what I like, the fact that it is a bit more understated. So this is, oh my goodness, you are kidding me. I'm talking, and Michael's saying, I'm talking to Michael. This is me. And Michael, look what you got in the background. This is, oh my, this is getting ridiculous now. So we've had how many? Mine, 2, 3. This is the 4th Seamaster 300 we've had on this show by itself. That's horrifying. Stop sending in Seamasters now. We've had enough. Mine's not getting any limelight anymore. That's hilarious. I mean, it's such a gorgeous watch. I really enjoy seeing it. The rhodium dial is great, but then there are also a few other pieces that look just as good. There's also a blue dial. Also, nice shot. We get to see the lume matching the hand. I mean, look at that. Have you ever seen that before? The glow of the blue matching the second's hand. Stunning. So, Michael, thank you. And I think there's a few more. Another shot of the Yacht-Master. And that is your, what is this car here? Is this a GTI? No, it's not. I don't know. Yeah, it's getting pretty, we're getting close to the 3-hour mark, you know. Seamaster hoarders, Zane, we're disgusting human beings. We're just all collecting, we're all expecting the Seamaster to go up in value. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. Next super heavy hitter. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? No Rolex on my menu from Truth Fears. Okay, from Paul. Paul sends in a Moser. It's not just any Moser. Are we ready? So I think he just picked this watch up. H. Moser Heritage Tourbillon. Da-da. Another superb looking watch. And it just to me, it just reminds me of Lawrence of Arabia kind of background. You know, we're talking early 1900s, maybe 1920s. Moser Whirlwind, is that what they call it, Bud Owens? Oh, I look at that dial. I mean, Moser is a brand that's definitely not spoken about enough. I would love to talk about the brand more, but it's not a brand that's ever spoken about, and so it never gets any traction. And I kind of have to balance the idea of it needs to be something that reaches a lot of people, but at the same time, you know, engaging enough that it looks into a different avenue. And yeah, Moser as a brand. I mean, the Streamliner, I spent so much time making that video, and I think it only got like maybe 5,000 hits. I don't know. I really expected it to be, I think I might have missed the boat because it lost its hype and popularity when I put the video out, but you know, that's how it is. Tourbillon, ladies and gentlemen, with, look, it even has coin edging on the case. Oh, and the fume, would they call this a fume dial? It's very elegant. And I think he also sent me a lume shot. I don't know. But the wire lugs, the old school crown, and tourbillons in general, the most useless complication for sure. And something saying the numerals are all lume, ceramic plus lume, entire 3D numeral lume. That is amazing. Oh, wow. Are you noticing what I'm seeing? This feels like quite the fume dial because it looks like it has a drop shadow. It actually looks like it's floating above the dial. Now, this is either a visual trick of how the dial's working, or the numerals have been set in such a way that there's like a sprue that is sitting proud. There's almost like a lip that sits inside here where the extrusion is, that allows the numerals to sit above the dial. So it looks like they're actually floating in space. I mean, brands doing that, that's what matters. A little bit more thinking about just how they're going to approach the elements. So legible. As I said, the tourbillon is like the most useless complication ever for a wristwatch, but it's a talking point, and it's so attractive. I mean, now we get to see that. I think he deliberately sent this in to show the depth. We can have a look at that now. Look at that coin edging. I don't even think Breguet does such fine coin edging on the sides. For those of you who don't know, it's an amazing little bit of history that the coin edge was done by Breguet just because it allowed better grip on the edging of the case of your pocket watch back in the day. And that aesthetic has since been, oh my gosh, Magic Mouse. I think my Magic Mouse is also drunk. Must be the fumes from the whiskey that's getting in. And something saying the numerals are actually thick on that watch. I mean, I'm going to get right in. This is probably the best spot we can see them. He deliberately sent this in so we can get a good look at the side angle. It's amazing, though. It looks like a cartoon. It's like a cartoonish placement on the dial. It looks great. And then get into the tourbillon. We see all the intricacies back there. Tourbillon as a movement. What's crazy is that the movement isn't actually that complicated. The tourbillon form, just with regards to how it's built, it's basically not just your balance, but how can I best describe it? I don't think I will. It's too late in the evening for me to even try. But if you break it down to its core parts, it's not actually that complicated. It's just more refined, actually. It's more intact. Less use of space on the dial, or on the case in general inside. Yeah, this is great. So Paul, thank you for sending this in. This is definitely one of the heavy hitters of the show. But don't worry, we still have some more great pieces at the end. I've always tried to save some great stuff for the end of the show. So so in something says that movement is actually complex since it has a dual hairspring system as well. I did not know that. Here I'm thinking it's a single hairspring. Is it actually a double? Is it one on top of the other? Moser, as a brand, highly recommend you look into the brand more, because there are some fascinating pieces that they make. And they've just brought out a new beautiful black dial with no numerals on it. I can't remember the name, but stunning. So thank you so much for this, Paul. Going to carry on through. Ray sends in a marathon, and here we go. We have another feature of a Seamaster. This is of my shots during one of the shows. It's so funny. So Marathon. Now, another brand that's going to be featured in my show video on Wednesday. Not Marathon in particular, but the brand is Benrus, I think. Benrus was the manufacturer at the time. And these American and Canadian-made brands, you can see a very distinct styling that was translated through over time. You find that the field watch almost got transplanted into a dive watch case. And the Canadian Forces dial, they call it the gray maple. It's called a GSAR. So it has a tritium. You can see by this little bit of a radio. I'm pretty sure this indicates that it uses tritium tubes on the dial. We've got a maple leaf here. So you'll find with a lot of American, Canadian divers that the field watch was almost transplanted into them. And you'll see that very cleanly and aptly in the video that's coming out on Wednesday, talking about the Benrus Type 1 and Type 2. Great brands. So thank you for sending this in. What a cool shot. We get to see the watch in good lighting, the brushing, the finishing. It's a brand that I need to look into more. I think I need to make a video on this watch, and just the Marathon brand in general, because these watches are currently being sent to forces. They're actually being used in the field. Just goes to show. I mean, some designs do the job. So Ray, thank you for sending this in. We're doing pretty well. We're approaching the 3-hour mark, and we might just hit it. Another Pelagos from Rob, Mountain Standard Time. The Pelagos. We had a left-hand drive in the beginning of the show, and now we have the standard blue dial. And I'm catching up with all of you in the chat, talking amongst yourselves, which is great. I love that, because I can just focus in a bit more. Perfect for a high-class dog trainer, as Bowser says. Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't Gallet a parent of Marathon? Might be, Emily. I mean, I'm by no means an expert in this field, for sure. I don't know much about the brand. I think at the same time that Benrus was making their watches, Marathon was also supplying a field watch to the certain armed forces of the time. Yeah, I don't want to give away too many details, but I'm sure most of you have realized what the show is going to be on Wednesday. Anyway, so talking about the Pelagos, it's a very popular watch, and I'm glad it is. I think Tudor has hit the nail on the head with this piece a lot. One more hour, Clive. It'll definitely be another, I would say, half an hour for sure. So there's actually talk about how they could modify the Black Bay. It would be so nice if the Black Bay gets a bit more attention. If the Black Bay received some Pelagos treatment, it would look so good. And Rich, what he's saying, is that a Rolex Bluesy? No, it ain't. It's a Tudor Pelagos, just a run-of-the-mill. It's probably one of their top spec divers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it has a helium release valve. It's 500 meters water resistant. It has all the quirks that you want. It has a snowflake dial. Gorgeous. The clasp design on this piece is something special. It's all titanium. It's bulletproof. It really is a rugged, bulletproof piece. And Bowser saying Black Bay and Burgundy. Now we can talk about Black Bays in more detail next week. We're talking about 50s inspired watch designs. That could be Tudor equals Tudor. That's actually not a bad way of saying it. But then also we're talking about we're also talking about car brands, and we had a complete disaster there. And Triforce saying honest thoughts on the Rainbow Daytona. Yeah, I don't get it at all. I don't get it in the slightest. Honest thoughts. when we think of, I like looking back to see where the watch began, you know? Oh, by the way, Rob, thank you for sending in that Tudor. I like looking back to see where watches began and if they stay to that language, that DNA. And I think the Daytona was a tool watch first. Now it's a watch for tools, but that's another point. It's a watch that originally began as this instrument to be used in a rugged environment. And there's so many, there's so many comments. I want to catch up with all of you. I'm going to try and stop the chat so I can address you. And also from Rodrigo, this is an 8-day power reserve IWC engineer. We'd never see this watch, and it looks fantastic. I think it looks so much better than the standard engineer that's quite popular. And it came out, he says, circa 2000. And what else? Designer. I don't know why I said designer, but anyway. Oh, I think Rodrigo is a designer. He's an industrial designer as well, and he loves this piece. Gorgeous looking watch. So yeah, on my honest thoughts of the Rainbow Daytona, I don't get it. It's not something that it looks like a fashion watch to me. Yes, it's a guilty pleasure for sure. But in a similar way, it's like the Leopard Daytona. It just doesn't. I don't understand. I think rhinestones when I see the watch, and that's not what you want when you think Daytona. For me, when I think Daytona, generally, I think trophy. I think it's the watch that caps off a Rolex collection, which is quite special, no? Okay, I'm going to catch up with a few more. Jay asking, just sent you a whole write-up and links downloads on a trip to Marathon H. Oh, fantastic. Ontario. Bought 2 watches, my son's military grad. Thank you, Jay. That is fantastic. I'd love to look at that. And Clive saying, take a break for half an hour. Don't worry. I'm good. I can roll. See, what happens is when you get the right quantity of coffee and whiskey in together, it's like Red Bull, just perpetual, you know. So how thick is that IWC? G Roberts asks. I have no idea, but it is quite the monster. It looks like a 42 mil in size. It looks pretty big. But also another element, let me try and, sadly you didn't capture this. Why doesn't the engineer have this on its dial anymore? This is what made the watch so important back in the day. I mean, look at that script. It's simple, basic. You have a little lightning bolt there to highlight its magnetic properties. I mean, come on. IWC, wake up. Bring this watch out again. Refine it a bit more. Bring this piece back. It's great. It's just, it does what it does. Okay, catching up with you. And Chip, thank you for the super chat, Chip. Absolute pleasure. I need to catch up with all of you here. I've been rolling too long on my own accord, and I haven't addressed any of you here. Let's see. Happy for more shots of the marathon if you want to do a bit about it. Watch companion, absolutely. And this was your watch that you sent in. Yeah, I'd love to. I want to talk more about marathon for sure. I'm really enjoying field watches and just military watches in general. I think there's something so innate about military spec pieces nowadays. Truth fear saying I'm doing fine. That's great. Yeah, the balance is good. I'm going to hit the coffee a bit more. I can't believe it's lasted me this long. So Demetrius says, beautiful engineer case designed by Gerald Agents. Gerald Genta Agents? I don't know. Apologies. The chat is jumping up. I'm missing quite a few. Okay. So from Sam, SARB017, the Alpinist. This is the original Alpinist on a razor wire bracelet. I mistook the bracelet name. I think I called it something like barbed wire, but it's razor wire. It's the strangest bracelet design you'll possibly ever see. It literally looks like it could slice you open if you're not careful. And the Alpinist, I did a write-up about this, did a video talking about just the styling, how I find it quite peculiar, how they've combined elements together. But it's become the real, YouTube cult watch. Next to the SKX and other models, I think you can call it one of those in that same region. Seiko's done some peculiar things now. They've pulled the watch and they've introduced it in its Prospex line and all of this. But it's definitely not up everyone's alley for sure. It is peculiar. Whatever it's called, it's a weapon for sure. It's nuts. So Sam, thank you for sending this in. And okay, now we're going to carry on here. This is great. Okay, so Shane sent in some great stuff. Let's start with just the basic run of the mill. This is the only, how cool is it that some weeks we can do this And we never get into like modern subs, or we haven't seen a single Rolex Explorer. And I'm looking, there is not one Rolex Explorer, modern Rolex Explorer featured on the show, which I think is just hilarious. And then we get repeats of Vacherons and Langes and whatever else. So Shane sends in a 114060, just his standard big size super case. And he also sent in a loom shot, which is always appreciated. Nice to see that presence. Can't take it away from the sub. I mean, as much as people love to hate it, hate to love it, the Submariner is its own beast. And next to the Seamaster 300, they both share the same kind of platform. They are their own animal, and that's what I like so much. And it's difficult for me to like put all my thoughts into one video as we're sitting here now. But definitely things that this watch does right, and there's some things I would like for it to improve in places. The super case, as we know, we pretty much. We can predict what this watch is going to look like next, with the super case being tapered in, with the new 72-hour movement put inside. Nothing else is going to change on this watch. I would be very surprised if they put red text on the latest piece. Who knows? We will never know. But also from Shane, he sends in, are you ready for this? Reference 5270R. I'm pretty sure he was trying this on at a boutique. This is a holy grail for many, many of us. And yeah, it's a 5170, but with a full annual calendar complication. Or no, it has the quarters. It's a perpetual calendar. No, Zane can clarify that if he's still in the chat. Is this I feel like this is a perpetual calendar and not an annual, but it's in rose gold. And I just love, on his wrist, everything rose gold just works so well. It's a terrific watch. So it's sitting in the first quarter. You have your date, moon phase. And then you got your day and month. Yeah, it's a real beast. And there's a few people that only collect these watches. As Bud Owen saying, I want a 5070. 5070 has a peculiar case styling, right? I want to look at those more. It'd be nice to just do a Patek stream, even though it's so above and beyond my pay grade. Perpetual calendar. Thank you, Zane. I would like to talk about Patek references and just have a roll chatting about all sorts, because there's so much to learn about this brand. And I've tried to like integrate stuff in as the channel's grown over time, talking about the 5212 and what was the other? A 5370. I think that's a double split chronograph next to one of the first split chronographs that Patek ever did with their in-house movement. I can't remember the reference, but yeah, I called it Black Beauty. Patek Black Beauty, if you look it up on YouTube or Google or whatever else. But yeah, this is really, it's a proper grandfather clock. You see this and it's just classical styling all the way through. Definitely not up everyone's alley. Too big in rose gold is a no-no. Truthfully says, mucho dinero, absolutely, Hans. Okay, I'm going to carry on here from Shane, and he also sent in another 007. How cool does that look? What a great shot, first off. Geez. The spray tan. What have people said? It's the spray tan Omega. I can vouch for that, for sure. And Founder Timeless Capital also has one of these pieces and says that it's a watch that he can't really get used to wearing because it feels like a toy. And I guess that's because of its weight and size. But also this address, the skin tone mixed with the black dial looks so good. I think it sings. It really looks so nice. And you can really get to see that the coffee effect of the patina on the dial. This is definitely not up everyone's alley. I would love to get some wear time with it, but it's not a watch that really speaks to me much. I think they could have done a bit more with just addressing a few elements on the dial, maybe getting rid of this helium valve. The bracelet does look good though. The one element I would love to have seen is if the bracelet had a bit more of an integrated element to the way it connects to the case. But the way they've done the bracelet, this watch is all titanium, lightweight. Yeah. Apparently Daniel Craig helped design this. I don't know. And when they say that, it's basically someone just showing him a picture and he says, yeah, that's cool. Go with it, whatever. Anyway, comparing this to the Spectre Bond watch, I think many of us agree that the Spectre Bond watch has been able to survive a long time. I would like to see this bracelet mainstream. If this bracelet came out, I'd be buying it for my Seamaster for sure. I don't know about everyone else, but this kind of mesh would be fantastic. I'd love to see this mesh on the Spectre piece, you know? Okay, I'm going to carry on with the chat. Let's see, from Shane as well. What else did he send? Oh, at Planet Ocean. I think this is his personal Planet Ocean that he wears. Great photo as well. So nice seeing some off lighting. I don't know how you guys do this. I can imagine this is probably early morning. We're doing well. We are coming up to the 3-hour mark, and we've got, what, about 10 more watches to go. Don't go away, because there's some amazing stuff coming up in the end, as per usual. Okay, let's see what else is going on in the chat. I can see many are chat talking about Patek and bracelet watch. Yeah. Triforce saying Daniel has a bit more input than that. The reason why Spectre had a NATO was because of him. He wore NATOs before the watch also. And that's something, Triforce. I do know that Daniel Craig is big on vintage Rolex. I've seen him wearing a Big Eye Daytona. I've seen him wearing a 5513 before. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a bit of a dumb remark from my end. I'm sure he paid a bit more attention to the details. I think maybe what Omega did, this is when you think of the corporate side of things, they bring him the Seamaster Professional and they said, this is the watch we want to push. Of course it is, because, I mean, that's what we expected to see. We wanted to see, ideally, we just wanted to see the Seamaster Professional blue dial, just like the original Brosnan era, you know? But they decided, okay, let's jazz it up a bit for the James Bond situation. And he thought, okay, let's make it a bit more Ministry of Defense. What's impressive is the case back of this watch actually has all the correct insignias with regards to the branch, the Navy branch, the NATO stocking number. It has something, the year of manufacture, and all these little bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, this photo really does it justice for sure. You want to sell this watch to people, that does it. I mean, it does look terrific. There's just, it's still growing on me, actually. Honestly, I think it's still growing on me. So great. Thank you for these, Shane. It's so nice seeing these watches in a different context. And then Sri sends in a Blancpain GMT. We haven't seen one of these all show. I love it. I love the diversity. Sometimes we can go through an entire show and not look at one piece. And Random Rob, oh, that is fantastic. Random Rob, thank you so much for joining, and congratulations on your white Seamaster, the Great White. I nicknamed it the Great White Seamaster Professional. It was so close between that watch and my little 57. Stunning piece. I really hope you're enjoying wearing it. Final Time is Capital on your third coffee. You're a monster. That's so good. I'm still rolling, surprisingly. I do put 2 shots in my coffee, so normally it hits me. Okay, so let's catch up. And Rich Buddy saying Majesty has a Rolex or Amigo. What? Oh, Her Majesty, Rich Buddy. Her Majesty has a Patek Philippe. Surprisingly, a lady's Patek Philippe, and it's a gem, actually. It's all gold. I'm sure you'll find it on Google if you have a look. Omega Honeymoon, for sure. It's such a cool watch, Random Rob. I think it's great. So yeah, getting to the Blancpain. What have I said about this watch in the past? I admire that they are now, you know, making this watch more attainable. You know, it's a GMT. It's got the Pepsi feature and everything else. But just as a brand, I think Tudor could do so much more with their Blancpain line. They really could integrate the snowflake element a bit more with their pieces. I could drive attention in a different way. But it's such a desirable watch. I can imagine, top of my head, I can imagine that this movement and everything is going to be put into the 58 very soon. The 42 mil is going to also have a 58 variant. And if that's the case, the GMT 58 will just disappear like hotcakes. Maybe it's too bad of a thing to do at this point in time because the demand is so high on the standard, the 41 mil. What is it, the Blancpain 41? I can never get the mentions right. Okay, so catching up with all of you here. Charles has a Parmigiani. Yeah, Parmigiani Floria Toric chronograph, I think it is. Crazy, right, though? And Zane's saying 3 or 4 Pateks. Yeah, I mean, that the family has quite a selection. I like the fact that the sons are very humble with what they have. I think Harry has a Breitling Aerospace and a Explorer 2 Polar, 5-digit reference. And William just has a Seamaster 300, 36 mil that he got from his mother, which I think is pretty special. I mean, that's amazing, right? I think the fact that your mother can give you just a basic watch that you now wear, well, I mean, you can pretty much afford any watch in the world, but you choose to wear the watch that your mother gave you, a 36 millimeter quartz Seamaster Professional. I mean, yeah, it's pretty special. So Sri, thank you for sending this in. I do enjoy how you caught the light here. Get a good understanding. This looks like you're in a hotel looking out there. But Blancpain GMT, I mean, love it or hate it, it's one of the most popular watches out there, you know. Dylan had to break to feed the killer. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I love doing these shows. It's always a pleasure, everyone. Remove those faux rivets. Mountain Standard Time, that's a divisive subject for sure, talking about that. And I guess it speaks to the idea that it's a big crown and that it has the knurling on the bezel and it, you know, all of those elements. Also do like the fact that they go the extra step with the clasps and everything else. Okay, going to carry on. And Di wore a tank, yeah, right, Eric Bell, for sure. The same watch as Jackie Kennedy, no? Jackie Onassis, let me know. I don't know if it's the same reference or not. But we're going to carry on here from Sherwin. Oh, speaking of Breitling, this watch, oh, geez, I find this to be such a fascinating piece. Thank you for sending this in, Sherwin. Let me catch up with all of you in the chat. I don't know what's going on. There's all sorts of discussion about palaces and would sell like crazy as a 58. It would. Cardinal, for sure, it would. So the Breitling Emergency. Now, this watch operates on a very specific frequency. You hit a button by mistake, and you'll get special forces coming to collect you. I don't know how this works exactly. I don't know if this is a real thing, if this truly does happen, but the emergency frequency, 121.5 megahertz. I don't know if the frequency as of now has been discontinued and they now operate on a different situation. And there was mentioned, Michael saying, did these used to retail for about 10K? I don't know. It's a fascinating complication. And I think Sherwin says in the current climate we're living in now, this is probably one of the best watches to have. I agree. I think it's pretty cool. I do enjoy it. The way you can just tell that this is like an aerospace inspired piece is the way the numerals have been arranged. And I mean, they look eerily similar to watches like the Tudor North Flag, the Rolex Explorer. So many brands actually use similar. I mean, all they've done is basically stretch the typeface a little bit. They've fattened it up a bit, you know. But the yellow accents and highlights, I think it looks great. It's just rugged ridiculousnly, honestly. The fact that it emits a radio frequency to save your life, pretty entertaining. Rich Buddy says it'll be very expensive to pull that cord during quarantine. Yeah, for sure. That's funny. Okay, going to carry up here. So next from Talal, he sends in, and I think he sent these in last week, but he omitted the Panda Daytona. This is his trifecta. This is his set that he wears. And as we're closing off, I think we're going to see a great selection. The last few watches that we're going to see on the show are really nice. 73 Math saying looks uncomfortable to wear. I would agree to that as well. So what do I like about this selection? We did speak about this the last show we had because we did have these watches. But as far as a Royal Oak goes, the way that the dial has been arranged, the way the subdials are there, smaller subdial at the base, blue accents is just lively, striking, very good use of space. This chronograph, this is not only a dual time, it's not a dual time, but it's also a chronograph. So you have your pushers at the top and the bottom. And then you also have your local and your home time adjustment there as well. And what I like so much about this piece is the fact that it doesn't actually look like a Nautilus. It doesn't have your typical twin baton at the 12, you know, it's spare of that. It looks strange almost. Of all the Nautilus, the Nautili out there, this is one that really doesn't look like a Nautilus in the lineup. I made a video about the Nautilus a while back. I never actually published it because I thought the recording sucked and I just threw it away. But of all the references, this one looks so peculiar. It doesn't look like a Nautilus at all. And then we have the Panda Daytona. Yeah. I mean, this watch is just the ultimate hype watch of the century. But, I mean, what you're getting out of this, you're getting, again, it's a trophy watch. You're getting robustness, you're getting elegance, you're getting simplicity, you're getting a watch that can be used on all occasions. It can be your one watch. It does it all. So 3 chronographs, 3 very distinct, unique chronographs. And I think as a set, they're not your, what I like is that they're not your, besides the Daytona, they're not your typical pieces from this family. You know, when you see Royal Oak, you think jumbo. When you see Nautilus, you think 5711, 5712. But yeah, as a set, it's really nice and clean. Also like the fact that the dials are all different. We don't have just a blue dial and another blue dial. It's nice to see a bit of change, a bit of a charcoal here. You know, great, really nice layout. And I think he sent a few more. This is it on the wrist. We get to see this piece on the wrist on show. It's great. And Clive, I think I could easily speak about these 3 for the next half an hour. I'm sure I could. What I'll do at the end of the show, I'm going to jump back up to the cover photo, the Paul Newman Daytona, and discuss that a bit more. But yeah, it's a monster, this piece. We've spoken about this watch a few times. There's a couple of gents who sent this exact reference in, and one was for a 40th, and it's quite the piece to celebrate a milestone for sure. Definitely not up everyone's alley. Again, I'll say the Royal Oak to me is a watch that sometimes I think it's the ugliest thing on earth. Other times I think it's terrific. Other times I wonder just why this was chosen, why the design was followed through. What I enjoy so much is that many brands can, you know, the Royal Oak was made with its octagonal layout. Everything looked like an M8 nut in a way, M8 bezel and everything else. But then they decided, okay, let's make a chronograph. And they executed it extremely well by incorporating the same effect with the pushers on the sides. I don't know if this was screw down or not. But it just the balance and the placement of everything is clean. The legibility, apart from the polishing inside there, the legibility is pretty sublime. So yeah, great piece. Thank you for sending this in to Lal. And I think also a wrist shot of his Patek. Again, I mean, look at it. Does that look like a Nautilus to you? No, not really. It's peculiar. Okay, going to carry on. There's been a few talks. Let's have a look. Not just watches, also weapons, Les, for sure. Send you photos of my Trumpy bear. Thank you, Carlos. I don't know if this is recent or if this is what you've just done. And Founder says, as a collector, I'm only into very few Patek models that I have in my collection, and they're all low-end models. I mean, that's the thing. These are all for sure. I mean, no way about it. These are all hype watches. It's incredible just how the market has changed for these pieces over time and how it's continuing to climb. And for your reference, this is a Patek 5990, and it's G. It's G. It's white gold. I'm terrible with my references, but again, doesn't look like a Nautilus, and I really appreciate that fact. Got a bit of visual complexity there. I mean, just look at the minute track around the dial. It's so busy and unique and different. I find it strange how Patek is able to just transplant all of their calibers into all their pieces. I'm pretty sure there's an Aquanaut. Is there an Aquanaut that has this same complication? I know that there is many pieces in the line, in the family, that also have the same complication. Yeah, they just never stop. It's a great looking watch. Could lose the wart on the side though. Are we talking about this? I don't know if you're talking about the Omega, or if we're talking about the pushers. One element that I wish, I spoke about this in the first show, last week's show, I think. It'd be so nice if these pushers could be integrated into these shoulders. Wouldn't that be more elegant? The fact that you have these shoulders actually used as something more than just crown guards. Pilot Style says, I think it looks super ugly. Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, it's not a watch I would ever buy for myself, for sure. It's definitely not a watch that appeals to me greatly. The Nautilus as a line, nah, doesn't do it. But I do appreciate the fact that it's not your run-of-the-mill Nautilus that we always see. It's good. It's good to see a bit of a difference. Oh yes. Okay, coming up next, we've got a Lange, the last Lange of the show, and you cannot end with a better Lange than this. Why do I say that? Let's get the next photo up. I think this is clearer. This is from our man Tillman, and this is the Lange 1, the first Lange 1, and he politely corrected me about the references and the numbers were produced. So these were made in and around 95, I think, or 94. That's when Lange really came back to form. And I said there were only about 100 of these. There is about, what did he say? I'm going to pull up his email again. I had it saved just to correct my facts. There's between 400 and 500 of these in the world, I think. Let's see. I've actually got his email here, so I can read it to you all. So between 400 and 500 pieces around, not 100 as you mentioned. Price at the time was 16K Deutschmark, which is about 12K in euros nowadays. And only watch collection where the Patek Grandmaster chime got under the hammer. Oh, talking about this, the sales of these watches at auction, they're extremely valuable. And value is somewhat multiplied between 1.8 times and 3.5 times after inflation is deducted. I mean, just barring value and all of that rubbish and collectability and everything, I mean, this is the real deal. This is the Lange one. And to prove it, you look at the case back and you notice it has no clear movement. It's got a solid back, and that's really the way to start. I mean, look at it. And he loves this piece. I mean, how can you not? The original Lange one is the way to go. Double face house. Double. Is that what it actually means? I'm not even going to try and say it, but I'll just make a fool of myself. I am part German, but I can't get my words around, especially this late. I mean, it's 10 past 1 in the morning. But yeah, I mean, it's the Lange one. And they did a few little quirks like this highlight on the dial, yellow gold. I think this was the only color scheme that they had back in the day, the originals. But he just loves it. And I think as far as a genuine Lange one goes, hard to beat the one that really brought the brand back to life. I mean, how's that? I think it's pretty special. Nice way to definitely cap off the Langes on the show. We're not done yet, though. We've got a few more pieces here. And Watch Habit is last. I don't know if he's still in the chat. And it's so good that you're all chatting away and I'm not getting addressed at all. It's nice. I can actually run and just talk while you're talking about 16570s, solid end links, 73 MAF. I think you're talking about just Tudors and everything else. Yeah, so great. Lange one, the original Lange one. Thank you for sending this in, Tillman. It's always a treat. This watch will, if you send this in every week, this will always be featured on the show because it's very seldom that we find a true original Lange one from back in the day. We have how many? 5 more submissions to go. First from Vincent, sends in a Speedmaster Racing 40mm black and white. We get a good, I mean, a nice, this looks like a fisheye lens shot that he took. So it's a coaxial Speedmaster. It's not up everyone's alley for sure, but nice to see that they're experimenting and the trillions of Speedmaster references out there. So Founder Times Capital says, I need to look at Tudor as I only have one my daughter bought for me from Harrods. Oh, the Harrods, and your wife has a P01. Yeah, absolutely. The Harrods reference is pretty cool. I must say the Emerald Effect, I have seen one in the flesh, and the color scheme is very different to your standard basic. You think of the Hulk Submariner, for example, with that bright green. I think that off green is a bit nicer, the olive drab effect. Harrods is nice, yeah, it's clean. But again, polarizing color, whether or not you like green is another story. But this is a great shot, so thank you for sending this in, Vincent. Nice to see we get some Guilloche on the dial. Great finish. Speedmasters, love them or hate them. We could even say the Speedmaster is the hype watch, is one of the hype watches because everyone is just told to gravitate towards them nowadays, you know. Great shot though. I love the photography. I think what makes this show even better is that we get to see the photography and enjoy what everyone else is enjoying. So this is fantastic. Thank you for sending this in, Vincent. Next we have from William. I don't know if this is the same William, but first watch he sends in is an Orient. And don't worry, the next watch we're going to see is pretty cool. And I think this is the same William, which makes it even more interesting. Okay, so this Orient, I don't have the reference. Is it a Mako? I can never tell. Talk about bang per buck, value for money. These are pretty much at the top of the spectrum. You're getting a fully automatic watch, dress watch, at a reasonable size and scale for such a good price. Bambino, thank you, Hans. I'm always thinking of Bambino small seconds, and I make mistakes. There are very few dress watches that you can get nowadays for exceptional prices, but at the same time are well sized and scaled to fit the wrist. Bambino 2. Thank you, Eric. That looks great. I mean, it's just your simple daily everywhere. And now William enjoys this, and you think, okay, this is his price range, that's fine. And then he just drops this. It's like, okay, that's what I really admire about someone who loves watches, that he doesn't only own an Orient, but he also owns an Aquanaut, and he can enjoy them both. I think that's very special. It's great that that's actually the end of the show, because that's something that I think it should be hammered home to a lot of people, that watches should not be classified by how much money you have at the end of the day. I think these pieces, both of them, you can enjoy for different reasons. And yeah, I mean, the Aquanaut, it's a watch that's grown on me for sure. Great seeing these two together by the same person. It's very seldomly do we see these watches land in different areas. And don't send it off as the fine is huge. Founder Time is Capital. He's still keeping up. He's only on the Breitling emergency at the moment. That's funny. Shame. Okay. So yeah, Aquanaut, Orient, pretty nice pairing. And Zane says he prefers the 5167 on a bracelet. And 5167, this 5167, and the 64A is the travel time. No, I struggle with my references. So apologies. And Shaitan says cost shouldn't be an obstacle. Absolutely not. If the watch speaks to you, go for it. Jump on it. I really look forward to making the video about watches and value for money and what you get out of it. There's two ways to look at it, really. You know, talking about I'll actually save it for the video for sure. And Jimmy, there's two more pieces. Don't go just yet. The two last watches are just great. And I saved one very special one for last because we never see them in the flesh. So Eric Bell for sure, bait and switch. Yeah, I mean, that was the idea. I love it. I mean, the whole build-up for my watch reveal was a bait and switch at the end of the day. But yeah, the Aquanaut, great piece. I really enjoy it. I would love to get myself one. I think maybe in rose gold with the brown dial, the brown strap. Oof, I would kill for one. And that's, I've been thinking about it actually as a ending watch, a watch to cap off a collection. Oof, Aquanaut is a killer because you can just wear it, you know, wear it and have fun. Okay, last but not least, watch habits. If you're still there, are we ready to go with these last two? First from watch habit is a Patek reference 5250 annual calendar. And he's sent in some great shots. Watch habit, I can't wait to see the rest of your collection one day. James, thank you for commenting on the show. He's still watching. I think we've hit the trifectas. I think he's looking at the AP and the PP and the Rolex from about 10 minutes ago. Okay, so this piece, it's very popular. This was one of the first annual calendars that Patek brought out. No? 73 Matt saying the Aquanaut is a one watch and done. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great piece to wear for sure. And I like the fact that it doesn't draw attention to itself, that no one, even in this hobby, not many people know what this watch is, which I think is great. That's something special that I like to add with a lot of watches that I go for. Okay, so talking about this, I think the balance on the dial is something special for sure. It is a bit old school with the way the subdials have been arranged with the hands and the numerals. But if Zane could give us a bit more detail. This is not a 5250. Is this a 5146? I don't know. Thank you for that, Zane, if I made that mistake there. But the dial layout, you know, the numerals on all sides, the balance is there. You have the date complication at the base. I think that's so good. It's so nice to see when a brand is able to understand placement. I mean, look how elegant that thing is. As an everyday wearing watch, it's clean. It looks stunning. And then we have the power reserve at the top, all clear. I mean, all the corners are taken care of. You can draw a line from the center to all the places around the side. Got a moon phase there, whether you like it or not. Don't know if that's your cup of tea. But speaking about Pateks, it's quite a special piece. I don't know the finish. This is a G, but I don't know about the dial finish. If it's like a slate gray or if it's a white, might need to clarify that a bit more. But watch habit, if you're still here, your last watch is quite the mic drop because we just don't see it. And it's quite a new release. And some people might be quite angered by it because it is a Rolex, but you might enjoy it as well. Patek dial looks like it should be a mess, but they executed perfectly. And that's a Triforce Rich. It goes to show that even complexity can be simplified. The beauty in that complexity is that you can actually, from a distance, look at it and be able to determine the time pretty easily, able to use the complication well and see all the details. And this is not a new watch. I mean, I don't know if they still make these, but yeah, white cream dial. Yeah, it looks so good. I've never seen this combination before. Often we see a white dial with rose gold or yellow gold. Never do we see this. And these numerals, I mean, have they been blacked out? Are they actually black polished or something? I've never seen that combination before. Nice and clean. Okay, watch habit, busy with the kids. We're on your watches. And the last watch, I think, is quite special. I deliberately left it for the end of the show because it's unique and it is your favorite watch. It is, in fact, the photo on your avatar. And it is the GMT Pepsi with a meteorite dial. And seeing it with the lume, this was so close to being the cover photo for the show. And I thought, it's another watch that just vied for the top spot on the show. What a cool looking watch. And what I've said about meteorite dials, it's not up everyone's alley for sure. Absolutely. The meteorite, it's a thumbprint. But it's nice seeing the white dial on the Pepsi finish because, as we know, Pan Am were big on white dials. It's technically a callback to some of the original Big Crown GMTs that they had back in the day. And yeah, truth fears too many. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own taste for sure. I get tired of Rolex as well, absolutely. But to each their own. I think it's great being able to share such a nice variety. And yeah, it is a stunning looking watch. Remember, this is white gold. And again, the meteorite being a footprint, it's a fingerprint, I should say, on the dial. No two meteorite dials will be the same. And the white dial corresponding with the blue and the red. Stunning. So it's pretty good show. We've run all the way through and we've done well. We've hit 3 hours 20 at this point. Truth is, it's a pleasure. And I'm going to jump all the way back for all of you on the show at the moment. Thank you everyone who submitted, by the way. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to jump back to the 6239 that was sent in by our very own founder, Timeless Capital, and just sit on this for a while as I address all of you who might be signing in or signing out. Michael, thank you so much. And Juan, all of you, thank you for sharing your pieces with all of us. We really get to enjoy just such a wide variety of things. So yeah, the 6239, I thought I'd just close off on this. I find it to be such a peculiar watch. Who is the winner? If Thomas Burnett is still in the chat, yeah, who is the winner of the show? With regards to voting, there he is, Thomas. Vote for your favorite watch. I'm going for Dylan's modded Seiko. Just love the loom shot. Great that personalize the bezel. Fantastic. What am I going to say? What is the shot that wins the show for me? Actually, we've got some time. Let's just, oh no. I mean, this watch does it for me. That's all I need, really. But my watch doesn't count. I'm allowed to. What watch is really stuck in my, I mean, just if I just scroll through all of these, what watch has really brought me back to look at? Oh, wow. These are so close. The Rodania and the Lucerne, the CQ and the Handwind, they look so good. Everyone else is signing off. All of you who are. I think we can all vote as our final watch choice of show that I think worked so well. This Aquaterra definitely played a part. I think it looked so good. 5.5. I mean, there's so many good watches too, Actually, just with regards to photography and presenting the watch the best, I think I know exactly what watch I'm going to highlight. It was Shane's 007. That to me is the best presentation shot of the show, for my taste at least. The UFO helmet chrono Seiko, complicated Nautilus from Bowser Reverso. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. And Matthew, thank you from New Zealand. Great to have you here. The Lange 1 is the winner. This to me as a presentation shot, I think takes the cake, but there's just so many. I mean, we could spend the Moser, we could spend another hour just talking about it. Actually, these two also, I mean, top spot. What a presentation, the background, you know what I mean? We could just sit here for hours discussing all of these pieces and still, we have been, and still keep going. So everyone, for all of you who've joined, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. I really hope you're all well, taking care of yourselves. I'm going to keep rocking and rolling as of next week, get some more recordings done. And I really hope you can mark your calendars for Wednesday because there's going to be a great video. Took most of the week to prepare, and I think you'll enjoy it because it's probably the most condensed series of watches that we will see in one place of that time period. a very strong showing, as always. I mean, that's the bonus. It's amazing just how tight-knit these collections can be, these series of pieces that come through. But yeah, I want to thank you all. I'm going to close this off and just jump to the screen, if I can close this off. Oh dear. Don't know why, how the thing bugs out on me half the time. But to everyone who has joined, who has been a part of the show, it is just such a pleasure, as always, having you here. I really hope you've been keeping yourselves busy and just enjoying the watches. I think at the end of the day, you can take time away from looking at watches, but they'll always draw you back for one thing or another, one reason or another. And yeah, it's always a pleasure being here and doing this. Receiving your watches. I mean, you're the guys who make the show at the end of the day. You're the ones who actually contribute. I'm just the middleman presenting everything. But yeah, as always, thank you all so much for joining. There's so many of your names. If I had to shout you out, I'd probably pass out. You guys are great. Hope you all look after yourselves. And come next week, I think we're going to give Wrist Shot Week a break. And on Saturday, we're going to have a look at a more focused discussion around watches of the 50s. I think that might be fun. And just more of an open-ended discussion. That way, you can send more direct questions to me, and I can pull them up. We can discuss more rounded areas of pieces, you know, talking about brands and everything in between. So yeah, as always, thank you everyone for joining. This is amazingly 3 hours, 25 minutes. Pretty good show. So yeah, look after yourselves. Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for now, everyone.